Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you are watching what if Naruto was kidnapped by Kumo and found by Blind Rin. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
December 27th, Year 3 following the Konaha-Kumo War's commencement. Hiyashi Hyuga watched events unfold in the town square with a detached composure that would have fooled anyone but his twin brother. A number of senior Kumo shinobi were seated at a long table for the formal signing of the Konaha-Kumo Peace Treaty, with the head ninja of the Kumo Shinobi Corps serving as the ambassador. A diplomat from Cloud Daimyo's court was seated beside them to serve as the meeting's official. A representative of Fire Daimyo's court was seated at the other end of the table. Beside the representative were the third Hokage and his two senior advisors. To observe this historic occasion, the majority of the council members, along with all of the principal clan leaders and their descendants, assembled in the town square. People lined up to watch the signing on the streets that led to the town square. Despite its subtlety, Hiyashi managed to capture the one-eyed Kumo nin staring at his daughter Hinata. Had Hiyashi not been trained to control his emotions for his entire life, he would have struck the Kumo ambassador in the face with a Juken strike and liquefied his rotten brain the instant the bastard looked in the direction of his 3-year-old daughter. Damn the peace treaty. He was so outraged that it took all of his self-control not to activate his white eye by accident. The aging Cage would still want to sign the treaty with those fork-tongued belly-crawlers, and he would bet his right eye that the third knew the Kumo scumbag was lying through his teeth about wanting peace. The head of the Hyuga clan inhaled deeply and moved his weight slightly to his right. Because of this slight movement, Hinata's long sleeves were able to catch the cold winter breeze, creating a handy screen that protected the majority of his face from the Kumo ambassador and his group. When he saw a dirty thief, he knew it. His teeth were clenched by the avaricious expression in that Kumo ninja's one good eye. Hiyashi gave his clansman Ko a sidelong glance in a discreet manner. The young man complied with his silent command and advanced until Hinata was out of sight. The proceedings continued for about an additional hour. The third shook the hand of the Kumo ambassador and signed the treaty at the conclusion of the peace conference. With this action, the Konaha-Kumo War was formally over. With a deep sigh, Hiruzen Sarutobi removed his Hokage hat and sat behind his desk. He knew he was growing too old for this, and it had been a long day. During the brief 10-year period, Konoha had to fight war after war. First, Konoha's rank was diminished to less than half its former strength during the Third Shinobi World War. Next came the tragic Kyubi incident, which cost Konoha its young Hokage, and dozens of its best shinobi. Kumo immediately exploited their vulnerable state and declared war, which continued for 3 more years. He was aware, of course, that the peace agreement with Kumo was as tenuous as the paper on which it was signed. The unfortunate reality was that Konoha could not afford to lose its position as one of the 5 great nations, let alone any more of its force. Peace was what they needed. Danzo, the Warhawk, was aware of this and agreed with the peace agreement. The third drew deeply from his pipe and sighed in frustration once more, thinking of Danzo. How many times was it? 11? 12? Would Danzo continue to beg for Konoha's own demon container to be raised into an emotionless killing machine? Was Suna's terrifying example insufficient to deter him from taking this risky course? How could you be shocked if a boy turns out to be a true monster if you treat him like one? Hiruzen shook his head, grabbed his viewing orb, and used a chakra spike to swipe the hidden seal matrix before going home for the night. He wanted to make one final checkup on Minato's boy. Nothing. Hiruzen scowled and made the precise hand seals required to turn on the viewing orb once more. Nothing has changed. The third jumped out of his chair in alarm and yelled a series of commands. Tiger, seal the gates. I want no one in and no one out. Cat, check Danzo and report back ASAP. Bear, greet our guests from Kumo and keep them in the hotel. Scatter. Before jumping out of the window, 3 masked Anbu descended from the ceiling and knelt before the Hokage to accept his command. Hiruzen paced the length of his office and gave another sharp order. Dog, bird, bring me Naruto Uzumaki right now. 2 additional masked Anbu flashed out of the Hokage's office and knelt before him. The god of shinobi was unaware that it was too late. The legacy of Minato was gone. Years would pass before the boy made another trip back to Konoha. She believed her name was Rin. She didn't know whether she had a last name at all. She was completely unaware of her appearance. She couldn't see. Because she was able to shape and use her chakra, she knew she was a ninja. She was able to form jutsus by recalling the names and the corresponding hand seals. She was reasonably certain that she knew how to use different herbs and medicines properly because she knew what they looked and smelled like. For whatever reason, she was unable to recall her origins or her affiliation. Being unaware of one's affiliation was tantamount to eventual capture and torture for a ninja during a war. It was a guarantee of death or worse for a blind kunoichi. The odds were much better for a blind civilian girl who suffered severe head trauma and lost her memory. Rin expressed her gratitude to the civilians for discovering her in the first place. They wouldn't be able to tell she was a ninja without her headband. She was found floating down the Frost River in a death grip on a thick tree branch, which also happened to impale her right shoulder. According to the kind people who came to her aid, in addition, she had burn marks all over her body and a huge cut on her forehead. It seems that she was unsure of when to give up and pass away. For her, that was a plus. She waited and concentrated on getting stronger for a while. Her right shoulder had a fairly severe penetrating wound, but it shouldn't limit her movement if she had to flee quickly. However, she found it difficult to deal with her vision loss. A feeling of despair began to rise in her chest, but she brutally pushed it down and concentrated on her breathing. She had learned the value of maintaining composure under pressure from her Jonin teacher. Again, who was her teacher? For the next month, Rin maintained her composure and played the part of the helpless civilian girl to the letter until she was strong enough to sneak out of the hospital in the middle of the night. Since she could use all of her other senses, the task was not as hard as she had initially believed. Understanding how to use chakra was very beneficial. She accidentally found that by releasing tiny chakra pulses at precise intervals, she could obtain a rough bearing. She was reminded of ripples on the surface of a lake by the way her chakra moved through the objects around her. Despite her blindness, she was at least not defenseless. Rin had accepted her current circumstances as more time went by. She had no trouble navigating the wilderness that was Frost Country alone because she was able to sense her surroundings. Her ninja skills allowed her to trap small animals, gather herbs, and essentially live off the land. She made every effort to stay as far away from civilization as she could because her top priority was to survive. Ninja meant death, and civilization meant ninja. Her desire for creature comforts was subordinated to her will to live. Only when she needed to exchange supplies or obtain information did she venture into town. She had been taught since she was a student at the academy how important it was to gather enough information. She did recall attending a ninja academy in a secret village, but she was unable to identify which secret village it was. This was really annoying. If it weren't for that one incident, Rin would have been content to spend the rest of her life simply aimlessly wandering the wilderness. 2 years after waking up in the hospital, she felt the explosion of this familiar yet monstrous chakra in the middle of the thick forest of Frost Country. In the dead of winter, she had been knocked down and all the air had been forced out of her lungs by the sheer force of that evil chakra. She briefly believed she was having a heart attack. The evil chakra that was choking her suddenly vanished into thin air after an eternity. Rin gasped aloud and took a big breath, only to gag at the explosion of blood and gore-smelling stench. With a feeble whimper, she covered her mouth with her winter cloak. With a trembling hand, after a few attempts, she was able to extract a kunai from her waist pack and use it to stab her left arm. She was brought back to reality by the abrupt pain, and she was able to stand again in a moment. Her entire body was urging her to flee if only her legs would cooperate and get moving. Rin's incapacity to move at that moment altered the course of her life. Perhaps it was fate. Rin had to rely on her other senses to get around. After losing her vision, her other senses gradually became better to make up for her blindness. Otherwise, Rin would have missed the slight gurgling noises emanating from the evil chakra's direction. Rin pushed herself to relax and opened her ears to the noises. To her astonishment, every sense verified that the noises originated from a young human child. In the end, curiosity prevailed over her flight instinct. In a battle, Rin approached the sounds with a great deal of fear, and at last, in the middle of the corpses, she saw a little boy. Naruto. The boy was too young and in shock to respond to any more of her inquiries. Ultimately, Rin was only able to extract his name from him. In addition, he enjoyed ramen. The boy was covered in blood, so Rin cleaned him up, wrapped him in her extra cloth because his own cloth smelled strongly of blood, fed him something other than ramen, but he wasn't complaining, and then she found herself cooing to put him to sleep. Since then, the boy has been her lifeline, and she couldn't bring herself to turn him away. The child instinctively clung to the first person who showed him kindness because it seemed like no one had ever been kind to him. It was nuts. She realized she would never be able to get rid of this child when he began referring to her as mom. She didn't want to, either. Now that she was not alone, life had a lot more purpose. Naruto was a decent youngster. The boy was cheerful, bright, sympathetic, eager to please, and vivacious. You couldn't help liking him. However, there was a minor issue. Rin found it hard to ignore all the warning signs because she was trained to be a ninja. To begin with, Naruto possessed an unusually high quantity of raw chakra for his age. The boy's membership in a ninja clan with a bloodline limit seemed to be the most plausible explanation. It was bad news that she was involved with anything ninja. Second, Rin was positive that some of the dead bodies were Kumo ninjas and some were civilians. After sorting through and discarding them, some kind of ferocious animal tore them all to pieces. Curiously, there were no bite marks, and those claw marks didn't seem to match anything. She knew what kind of animal wouldn't use its teeth to kill, only its claws. At last, she was genuinely terrified by that positively malevolent chakra. There was no additional evidence, so Rin could only speculate that the claw marks were related to the evil chakra. She was particularly troubled by the way they all appeared to relate to Naruto when a group of ninjas were killed by a monster attack. How did a young boy survive? She could come up with a couple more theories, but it would be useless. It was too late because Rin already believed she was Naruto's mother, regardless of how dangerous the boy might be or how much moving around would be necessary to keep the child safe. What kind of mother would voluntarily leave her child behind? Rin made the decision to go to Wave Country. Now they were in Frost Country, a tiny nation too weak to support its own secret village, somewhere in the vast Black Forest. Regretfully, Frost Country was situated directly between the opposing forces of Kumo and Konaha, and neither group appeared to mind fighting on the territory of a third party. It had been difficult to conceal their presence with an untrained child in tow, but Rin had been able to hide in the wilderness and avoid drawing attention to herself. Besides, those dead Kumo ninjas would be sought after. Staying any longer would be foolish. They had two feasible options: go north to Rice Country or go south to Wave Country, as going east, Kumo, or west, Konaha, were both equally bad ideas. Rin was aware of recent reports of unexplained disappearances in Rice Country, having listened to local rumors enough to know better than to tempt fate. Her choice to visit Wave Country proved to be a wise one. Rin began to learn about an ongoing civil war in Water Country that was getting more and more violent as they got closer to Wave. A constant flow of refugees fled the island nation to neighboring coastal cities as a result of this civil war, which more closely resembled a genocide. One of the best places for refugees from Water Country to gather before dispersing throughout elemental countries in search of a fresh start was Wave Country. Because there were too many broken families in Wave, no one would give a blind single mother and her small child a second look. Rin gave Naruto's hand a light squeeze before saying, "Let me know if you are tired, alright? I'll find us a place to stay for the night. We are pretty close to a town, so we could probably sleep in a bed for a change." Naruto had incredible endurance for a child his age. Rin, however, was wise enough to assume that the boy would not be worn out from camping and walking for several months. Naruto gave her a bright smile and answered enthusiastically. The 3-year-old boy continued to skip the remainder of the way to town after saying, "I'm not tired. I can walk lots. I can skip, too. Look!" A desperate cry for assistance echoed close to the edge of the slumbering port town, interrupting his excessively ebullient demeanor. "Somebody help, please. My daughter, we need a healer, please help." The first thing that naturally sprang to Naruto's young, naive mind was, "Mom, we should definitely help. Someone is in trouble." Rin let out a sigh. A part of Hiruzen Sarutobi wanted to savagely tear out those idiots' throats, but another part of him wanted to laugh at their stunned faces for digging their own graves. More importantly, we cannot even demand retribution from Kumo for kidnapping Konaha's own demon container. If we do, then they will know for sure Konaha has lost its tailed beast while they have a combined power of both 8 tails and 2 tails. War with Kumo will resume if they find out. On top of that, other nations will see this as a major sign of weakness. I wouldn't be surprised if they choose to ally with Kumo and start a joint attack to wipe Konaha off the map," the third said with a snarl. Hiruzen was certain that the council members understood his message clearly based on the horrified expressions on their faces. "I don't care how you people think of Naruto. The fact is, a loyal demon container is a hidden village's greatest guardian, a true hero who serves as the village's ultimate shield. They are not called human sacrifice for nothing. Their presence alone could ward off invasions from other countries." Abruptly, the voice of the elderly Hokage rose in righteous rage. "For 3 generations the Uzumaki clan have served Konaha in this capacity since the first Hokage's time. Yet, from what I can see, this ungrateful village not only spat on their devotion but also trampled on the 4th's dying request. Now we've lost Kyuubi's power, as well as the last Uzumaki. Would someone else like to offer their newborn child for the next tailed beast we happen across? Anyone? No, I thought not?" Before continuing, Hiruzen shot a sharp glance at each member of the council. "Our Hunter Nin division tracked the kidnappers all the way to Frost Country. Unfortunately, the trail went cold a month ago. However, we have reasons to believe those Kumo spies failed to deliver Naruto to Cloud Country. Evidently an unknown third party intercepted them and slaughtered the entire group. All we could find were ashes from cremated corpses. If Naruto were among the dead, then we should expect Kyuubi to reform within a decade and take its revenge on our village. If he were alive, then let's pray to Kami he remains loyal to this village that mistreated him. Now, any questions?" The professor found the subsequent exclamation from each council member to be quite humorous. Tazuna, a middle-aged man, made the desperate call for assistance. His tanned skin and protruding muscles were the result of his honest labor throughout his life. His only daughter Tsunami's health suffered greatly as a result of her recent loss of her husband at sea. That day, she finally passed out in the kitchen, leaving Tazuna a nervous mess. Then, like a headless chicken, He screamed for help into the night after picking up his daughter, the only thing he knew how to do. Rin calmed her father, who was half insane, and then covertly scanned her body with a sealless diagnosis jutsu. She was able to solve the issue quickly. She will be fine. There is no lasting damage. A blood replenishing pill and a couple nutrition pills with her breakfast for a week should prevent this from happening again. She will need to take better care of her body, otherwise the baby would be in danger. Tazuna repeated, naively, baby? Rin grinned. Congratulations, Grandpa. Grandpa instantly fainted after rolling his eyes into the back of his head. Rin had 2 patients to tend to now. Fantastic. Tsunami needed to know that she was carrying a baby inside of her in order to overcome her debilitating grief. She had literally been given new life by this good news. Tsunami immediately offers them lodging as a token of appreciation after learning that her savior needs to find somewhere to stay, and no, she wouldn't accept rejection. Rin and Naruto ended up staying at Wave in this way. As it happened, Rin's healing skills were highly valued in Wave. The majority of the refugees who flooded into the tiny port town were not in the best of health. In addition, the slum-like refugee camp on the outskirts of town served as a breeding ground for diseases, and the cold weather did little to improve the situation. Wave would have been battling a plague come summertime if Rin hadn't been there to volunteer. Rin was so appreciated by the locals that they offered her a modest home on a piece of land and invited her to stay. The establishment was named Sea Breeze Clinic by Rin. Rin would take Naruto to the woods to gather herbs with his assistants when business was slow. The delicate nature of her chakra control prevented her from identifying small details on a plant. Furthermore, without her vision, she would still be unable to distinguish colors even if she possessed godlike chakra control. At one point, Naruto told her that he had blue eyes, bright yellow hair, and 3 slashes on each cheek. Rin could only see the boy with her hands and wished she could see for herself. He had thick, spiky hair that frequently defied gravity. Almost instantly, his hair would bounce back when she ran her fingers through it. His eyes were big. One would tremble at the destructive power of his puppy eyes. But he frequently closed them when he smiled to reveal his ear-splitting smile with those whisker marks on his cheeks. Rin thought the boy would look like a fox when he was happy. Although she didn't want to be the target of his antics, she bet he was as crafty and naughty as a fox. Making friends came naturally to Naruto. He was running around town and being his happy self when he wasn't helping Rin around the house. The child was already able to call everyone in Wave by name. Less than a month after they arrived, it took him 3 more weeks to have all the adults enamored with him. Naruto brought a 6-year-old street urchin home with him on the final day of spring. Please, oh please, can we keep her? Rin could practically hear Naruto's expression change to one of puppy eye. Fantastic. Naruto brings home stray children, while others bring home stray animals. Rin let out another sigh and, not for the first time, asked Kami, who was merciful, what she had gotten herself into. Rin scubbed the new kid raw in the tub and found that the her was actually a very androgynous him. Haku would grow up to break hearts, both male and female, based on how many times Naruto used the word pretty to describe his new brother. After running a scan and discovering that Haku had a rare and potent bloodline, Rin felt like hitting her head on a desk to prevent him from unintentionally hurting those around him. She would have to teach him how to control his chakras. After giving it some more thought, Rin concluded that it would be logical to provide Haku and Naruto with thorough instruction in every ninja art. The other day, a bloodthirsty Kiri ninja terrorized innocent people everywhere he went while straying through the town with a huge butcher knife strapped to his back. Who knows, maybe they'll run into more of those shady types later on. After all, one could never be too prepared. This was the first time Jiraiya had considered mutiny because some stupid civilians thought it was a great idea to get rid of the demon fox incarnate by giving Naruto to those Kumo bastards on a silver platter. His godson, Minato, and Kushina's living legacy were gone. Right now, Jiraiya would be flogging the bodies of those kidnappers if they weren't already burned to ashes. Not for the last time, Jiraiya questioned whether he should have brought Naruto up alone. Iwa assassins be damned when you were treated like trash by your own people, who needed an enemy. As if it no longer mattered, Naruto was disoriented. The sacrifice made by the fourth was in vain. But Jiraiya was not going to give up even if it meant tearing the entire elemental continent apart, one nation at a time. He swore to find Naruto once more and bring the boy home. Let's start with Cloud Country. 6 years after Kyuubi's defeat, in the summer before docking into a tiny grocery store, Rin lowered her head and walked past another group of shinobi on the street, stifling a curse as she pretended to check the ripeness of an orange in her hand. She cautiously extended her senses to observe their movement. Rin carefully isolated out the conversation between the group of unidentified ninjas on the busy street while focusing a tiny amount of chakra on her ears. Alright, you three. Listen up, we'll be staying in the local inn for the night and wait for the client to unload their merchandise. Tomorrow we'll set out for the return trip back to Konaha. I know it's your first C-rank mission. Try not to get too excited, set up a schedule for the night and work out the defense pattern for tomorrow. You should all know how to do this by now, so don't ask me, a male voice said. Correct. 3 genin students and 1 jonin teacher make up Target's team. Given that this is their first out-of-town mission, which is probably a simple escort mission, the genins are probably rookies since he is at ease enough to discuss their mission in the middle of the road. The jonin is not anticipating any problems. It was a foolish move on his part, leading one to believe that either the jonin is overconfident in his skills or he didn't think anyone would be interested in this information. Rin sighed a little in relief. Well, neither she nor her family had their support. Still, she had a bad taste in her mouth after unexpectedly running into a group of ninjas in town. 3 years ago, Naruto made a harmless remark that could be the cause of her current bad mood. The blonde 3-year-old boy quietly asked his favorite uncle Tazuna, "Why do people live in cardboard boxes next to the dumpster? Wouldn't they smell garbage all the time?" Rin and Tazuna looked at each other before they could respond to his query. Haku, Naruto's new brother, spoke. "They are refugees from Water Country. Most likely many of them were forced out of their homes, just like I was. Sad and homesick. I am fortunate enough to meet you. But not everyone is so lucky. It is difficult to start a new life again. While some of them may not have the necessary skills to start over, some simply lose their wills to try." Haku's remarks deeply disturbed Naruto. "They just give up? That's not right at all. I know. Let's tell them to try again. After all, you listened to me when you gave up. Maybe they just need some encouragement, and then they'll be all better. Like when I met you, these people are bigger and older and they are not all alone like you were. So it should be a piece of cake for them to try harder. If a kid can do it, a bunch of grown-ups sure can too." Some of the slum dwellers became alert when they heard this conversation, but the boys were unaware of it. Naruto had not yet finished. "Besides, if they need skills, we can teach them. Mom, you are smart. I bet you are a great teacher. I mean, you teach me stuff, and I understand them. Uncle Tazuna, you are really awesome too. You can build stuff with your hands, like boats and houses. Hey, I know. Why don't we build a big, long bridge to Water Country so people can visit home if they are homesick?" With a laugh, Tazuna tangled the blonde boy's hair in a loving manner. "I don't know, kid, that bridge will be one super long bridge to go all the way to Water Country. That's what ships are for. I do like the bridge idea, though I think it will be super useful to build a bridge to the coast of Fire Country instead. Imagine the business we can bring in. You sure have some interesting ideas, Naruto." He thought for a moment out loud. "You know what? If this bridge thing works out, I'll personally head the project and name it the Great Naruto Bridge. How do you like that, eh?" When the carpenter made the pledge, he was half kidding. He was shocked to learn that the very next day, people began to arrive at his house and ask to work on the bridge. They were willing to exchange labor for food and on-the-job training because the majority of them were refugees. Many residents chose to help out by donating materials for the project. After learning about it, Tazuna was blown away by the reaction. The Great Naruto Bridge was constructed 3 years later. The old slum by the dump had been demolished long before the bridge was finished, and Wave's economy was at an all-time high. The locals congregate in the community garden that was created there. Tazuna was chosen as mayor to represent the city in the Wave Daimyo's court because of his contributions to Wave. However, Rin and her small family became more and more agitated as the local economy flourished. The Great Naruto Bridge attracted ninjas from all over the elemental countries. In addition to traders and tourists, it was nearly impossible to go a day without seeing a ninja hanging around town. Rin was on the verge of losing her nerve. Haku and Naruto were observant, sensitive children who were particularly aware of their mother's emotions. Every time Rin was in the same general vicinity as ninjas, they could tell she was itching to run. They decided enough was enough one day. At the end of the day, Haku secured the clinic while Naruto attracted Rin's attention. He stood by the door with a serious tone. Naruto said, "Mom, we need to talk." Rin sat down and arched an eyebrow. "Go ahead. I think it's time for us to move. I mean, Wave is nice and all, but there are more and more ninjas every day. We know you hate them, so let me be clear on this," Rin said softly. "I don't hate ninjas. Why would I hate them when I try to teach you boys as much ninja skills as I could? I am weary of them because I don't want to be captured and tortured for information. Also, I don't want them to take too much interest in you because of your bloodline. Some villages practice bloodline theft regularly. It would be most unpleasant if they decide to keep you as lab rats and experiment on you. We are in an even more vulnerable position comparing to normal ninjas because we don't have a hidden village to back us up. This is why I ask you to pretend to be civilians at all time and try to avoid ninjas as much as possible." Though Rin could not really see it, the horrified expression on their young faces was all the reaction Rin needed. The way their breath caught, she could almost hear their disgust. Naruto cried out, "Experiment on people? Like lab rats? This is disgusting? Yup, keep in mind that sometimes legitimate experiments are conducted on volunteers. Those are extremely rare, though. If you are captured by enemy ninjas, chances are they won't ask your permission before cutting you up and taking a look at what's inside. Rin's explanation made Naruto a little nauseous. Now you are just trying to scare me, Mom. Nope, I wasn't. Have you heard of this saying, if you are naughty, Orochimaru will take you to his lab and feed you to his snakes? Rin said, beaming brightly at her boys. Both boys let out a gasp with a faint voice. Haku asked, Orochimaru is real? Of course, he is one of the legendary Sannin from Konaha. Tsunade the Slug Princess and Jiraiya the Toad Sage are his old teammate. Their names are well known throughout all the elemental countries. Some people say each one of them is easily as strong as a cage. Rin stopped and said, I'm not saying an S-rank criminal is looking for us. I'm trying to explain the importance of avoiding ninjas in general. Now that I've explained myself, do you two still think you want to move? This town has been your home for 3 years after all? Haku looked at Naruto and replied, I'm sure it's just not worth it anymore. Besides, it's not like we have to move very far away, right? Like, if we move to Fish Island, that place is only 1 hour boat ride away. We can visit Wave anytime we want. Rin agreed after giving it some thought. You're right, Fish Island is actually a very good choice. It's close enough for us to visit here, and it's too remote for ninjas to visit. Nothing ever goes on in that tiny little place, so Fish Island it is then. They were all packed and prepared to move. A week later, Tazuna invited them to visit frequently and showed them a small fishing boat he had constructed. Tsunami asked the boys to look after their mother and gave them each a long embrace. The 2-year-old son of Tsunami, Inari, was a crying mess. Naruto was fighting back tears as he said, Hey, little man, we'll visit, so don't cry. He gave his fishing rod to the sobbing boy and said, Here, take care of this for me. I made this myself. Inari took the present in both hands and gave it a loud sniff. As they parted ways, they waved goodbye to their oldest wave friends and boarded the boat. For a long time, the Tazuna family remained on the dock and waved back until the boat's dark shade finally vanished behind a dense fog. With a current population of 238 people, Fish Island was appropriately named due to the abundance of fishing spots that surrounded the small island. The general public would not even recall that this small blip of a place was once known as Whirlpool Country, but veteran fishermen in Wave would know that those fishing spots were once massive whirlpools. Whirlpool, a small island nation dominated by the Uzumaki clan of strong ninjas, was well known for its abundant natural resources, strong defenses, and the hidden village of Uzuio. The Uzumaki clan was well known for their exceptional longevity, their innate connection to sealing lore, and their fiery red hair that matched their temper. However, 20 years ago, their unmatched command of sealing lore led to their demise. Kiri and Kumo form an uncomfortable alliance out of fear of the Uzumaki's sealing prowess and embark on a vicious attack to destroy the nation. Unfortunately, Konaha, Uzuio's strongest ally since the start of the shinobi age, was too involved in their conflict with Iwa to provide any significant assistance. Uzuio fell after a siege that lasted for 2 weeks. The island is then completely destroyed by Kiri and Kumo, who don't want to take any chances. Fortunately, a few survivors were evacuated off the island, but they were all civilians. Each and every Uzuio shinobi lost their lives protecting their nation. The mighty Uzumaki clan had vanished. The red and white Uzumaki whirl was worn on the backs of Konaha ninjas as a symbol of shame and camaraderie following Uzuio's downfall. Whirlpool Country was so completely destroyed that it left a lasting stigma in people's minds, making it difficult for anyone to bring up the subject. Rin and her family would have stayed away from this place like the plague if they had known about it. Unfortunately, nobody had the idea to let them know. Hello, I'm Gado, owner of the Gado Company, and mayor of this fishing settlement. Welcome to Fish Island. You must be Healer Rin. I've heard so much about you. They knew people were waiting for them when they arrived at the port because they had sent out a message before the trip. Every new face on Fish Island would attract attention because the settlement was so small. However, they were surprised to see the mayor of the town greet them. The short, stubby man who proclaimed himself the town's big shot was scrutinized by Naruto, who scowled. This Gado character was giving him the creep for some reason, particularly when he shook Rin's hand. He had to actively fight the urge to clobber him. The man had his mother openly glaring at him. Naruto looked in Haku's direction, and the slight tension around his brother's eyes confirmed his intuition. It's official now, though they made the decision to try their hardest to protect Rin from this sleazebag going forward. Nobody can get away with messing up their family. Gado finally released Rin's hand after a protracted handshake and carried on with his duties as this town's mayor. Now, please follow me. I have prepared a place for you. This town might be small, but we could really use your service. Fishing is a dangerous job after all. You'll be surprised how many injuries one can get after a rough trip out to the sea. After exchanging glances, Naruto and Haku silently mouthed the word, thugs, and turned their heads. They soon came to a weather-beaten cottage. As they proceeded down the narrow road that led to the town center, Gado opened the door and swore loudly. "Well, this place is not great, but it's close to the port and not far from town. You can set up your clinic here. I'm sure it'll do nicely if you just air it out, hey," he said with lightning speed. A tiny blur of gray blasted out of the cottage and sped past the group. After 2 seconds, the gray blur suddenly stumbled over an uneven patch of ground and collapsed. The tiny figure got up and fled into the nearby dense forest before anyone could react. Gado shook his fist and yelled obscenities at the vanishing figure. "Filthy rat. You squatters are bleeding me dry." He was furious and warned, "Better watch out for them thieves. Those delinquents steal food from hard-working people like me. Wait till I get my hands on them. I ought to hang them by their toes and throw them off this island for good." "Of course, Mr. Mayor, those leeches who exploit honest folks should be punished accordingly." Rin nodded happily to keep from laughing aloud at the barb. Naruto and Haku had to bite the inside of their cheeks. Gado appeared extremely proud of himself, swelled up like a rooster. "Exactly, I'm glad we both agree well. Look at the time. I should leave you to your task. We are both busy people. After all, you need to unload your luggages, and my company won't run itself. Let me know if you need anything. I'll be in touch. Good day." He nodded with self-importance and walked away. After a few minutes of waiting until they were certain Gado was out of their line of sight, they started laughing. "Oh man, is this guy for real?" Naruto asked breathlessly, wiping a tear from his eye from laughing too much. Rin sighed and shook her head, saying, "Yeah, unfortunately, that clown is the mayor of this town. I think we should only unpack the bare minimum and leave the rest of our gears alone. I have a feeling we won't be staying here for too long." Haku laughed. "About that, the squatter from earlier, I think it's a kid about my age, way too fast to be a regular kid, in fact." Rin concurred. "The boy had shinobi training. I can feel the chakra boost when he shot out of the door." Naruto said in a quiet voice, "I saw him. He looked really hungry. I smelled blood, too old blood." Haku asked Naruto to explain, recognizing the expression on his face. The blonde kid grumbled to his relatives, "Look, I know I'm sticking my nose into someone else's business, but it's not right. He is hungry and sick. Mom, this much I can tell. We need to do something no one else would." So they provided assistance. They choose to be cunning because they know that the child will only become shy if they actively search for him. They used to carelessly leave food out and let it disappear. A few days later, they baked a fresh apple pie, cooled it on the windowsill, and added a tasteless, odorless knockout drug. Half of the freshly baked pie was still clenched tightly in the criminal's bony fists when they discovered him unconscious next to the window 2 minutes later. Naruto was correct. The child was ill and hungry. For the first time in a long time, Kimaru felt clean and rested when she woke up in a soft bed. He opened his eyes cautiously and looked around. He had been caught with drugged food, patched up, and placed in a soft bed to rest after someone had taken the trouble to catch him. Although it was small, the room he was in was tidy. The bedding's subtle aromas of lavender and other unnamed herbs had a soothing effect. A small table with a loaf of bread and a cup of water was beside the bed. Though he was still hungry, he knew better than to eat anything now. The door was knocked on. He stiffened but remained silent. The door opened with a squeak. 2 children entered the room, one with long black hair and the other with short blonde hair. The long-haired one appeared to be around his age, while the blonde one was around 6 or 7. The blonde boy joyfully said, "Hey, you're awake. I'm Naruto." And he pointed to the other child. "This is my brother Haku. Did you sleep okay? I should let mom know if you're not feeling well." Kimaru said nothing and just stared at the 2 brothers. His steady gaze caused the blonde boy, Naruto, to twitch uneasily. The silence was broken by the sound of his rumbling stomach. Kimaru blushed in spite of his manly exterior. With a broad smile, Naruto's youthful face glowed like the sun. "You're hungry. Mom said you would. There is bread on the table. I'll go check the kitchen and find you more stuff. Don't worry, it's not drugged this time." He waved and left the room. After bringing out a chair, Haku took a seat facing Kimaru. He inquired, "What's your name?" His features were delicate, and his voice was very soft. Kimaru was certain that this Haku person was a girl if Naruto had remained silent. "Kimaru," was his response. "Where are you from?" "Water Country." After a moment of reflective humming, Haku stated clearly, "You have a bloodline limit." With a loud click, Kimaru closed his mouth and gave the boy in front of him a wary look. Haku gave a contemptuous shrug. "I have one too, and I was from Water Country as well. I assumed you have shinobi training. You do know how to use chakra, correct?" Kimaru reluctantly nodded in response to Haku's query, feeling a little lost. "Good, as long as you have enough control to not to harm anyone around you. No one cares, at least my family don't," Haku said, paused for a moment, and then added, Just don't use it in front of other people. This place is a little, let's just say the mayor of this town has some questionable business practices. Kimaru could only give a stupid nod. He felt out of his element at this point. Even though he was aware that his upbringing was lacking in terms of typical human interactions, do regular people knowingly give street urchins drugs in order to provide them with food and shelter later on? There was nothing to compare him to. However, he was raised in the dungeon of his clan in a sealed cage. Maybe his idea of normal was distorted? Getting out of the chair, Haku stretched. The dark-haired boy abruptly leaned forward, holding a long, sharp needle against his carotid artery. I'll leave you alone for now. Kimaru, let me know if you need anything. You can stay as long as you want. We won't stop you if you want to leave either. Just remember one thing. If you hurt my family, I'll kill you. Are we clear? There was no objection from Kimaru. Gado's business success was based on two factors. He hired thugs to physically beat down his rivals, and he transported illegal goods to maximize profits. The location of Fish Island was perfect for his base of operations because it was situated between Lightning Country and Water Country. He would sneak desperate bloodline wielders out of Water Country, use potent drugs to render them unconscious, and then sell them to Kumo for high-price rakeage paid well for any bloodline wielders, and it was inexpensive to hire rogue ninjas for this task. Furthermore, there were plenty of ordinary citizens who also desired to leave Water Country. Since the beginning of the Civil War, he had been making a fortune on the slave market because brothels always welcome new customers and hidden villages are always in need of more bodies to perform ninja tricks on. The ultimate squatter was Gado. He seized control of the fishing community with his band of thugs and proclaimed himself the town's mayor because he knew there was no local government to put an end to unlawful activity. On the first day of their move to Fish Island, Rin and her family learned of this. After all, Gado wasn't exactly the type to be subtle. The challenge was to leave in a discreet manner, but they knew they had to leave this place as soon as possible. They can't avoid raising suspicions about themselves, even though they would love to hop in a boat and sail back to Wave without turning around to silence anyone who might endanger their human trafficking network. Gado and his thugs would do whatever it took. The fact that Gado controlled the entire Fish Island was already awful enough. If at all possible, they did not want Gado's influence to spread to Wave. It was Naruto who suggested Operation Whirlpool. This operation had two goals. First, they had to get away. Second, they wanted to stop Gado's slave trade. If they could, they devised 3 stages for this operation in order for it to succeed. Phase 1. Compile data. Phase 2. Determine the best time to attack. Make one if there isn't already. Phase 3. Establish an escape route and use Phase 2 as a diversion. Phase 1 was easy. Gado enjoyed boasting his subordinates were even less intelligent than their boss. They would frequently fight, gamble, and drink before going to Rin's clinic to get bandaged while spitting out helpful information. In order to get the locals' perspective, Haku would go to town and speak with them. Additionally, he would take advantage of these chances to acquire supplies for furnishing their new house. He discovered that old fishermen had a great memory and were talkative. They quickly revealed Whirlpool Country's history and its tragic past when given the appropriate prompts. In addition to that, he was attracted to the young orphan girl who worked in the neighborhood grocery store. Although he was working like a serious shinobi for this crucial operation, Haku tolerated the 7-year-old and allowed her to talk his ears off. Even though he was fairly certain the Karen girl had cooties, he could put up with the redhead as long as she didn't try to kiss him and give him cooties. Naruto was given the responsibility of mapping out the island for a possible escape route because he had superior night vision and was more skilled at wilderness survival than Haku. Since Kimaru knew the woods well, he offered to assist him. Naruto quickly discovered that Kimaru was incredibly strong and swift. He was certain that in a few years, if not sooner, the white-haired boy would surpass Rin as a deadly ninja. He was surprised by Kimaru's reaction when he brought up this observation. I was raised as a tool, and I was used as such. My existence has no other purpose. As if he were insane, Naruto gazed at the older boy. He inquired, and you're happy with that? Kimaru gazed back, utterly perplexed by this inquiry. What was the connection between his happiness and anything? Look, I have no idea how you were raised, and frankly, I don't think I care. I don't really understand existence and purpose and all that serious stuff, but I do understand what it means to be happy. Before I met Rin, I was miserable. After she became my mom, I was happy. Before Haku met us, he was sad. After he became my brother, he was much happier. It's simple. Do yourself a favor and find people who would make you happy. Maybe then you'll find your purpose. Kimaru made the decision to become Naruto's new sibling. Rin and her children were struggling to choose the best strategy to defeat Gado and his thugs because there were so many options. Their options were to poison Gado and his entire gang, Haku's idea, which drew odd looks from Kimaru, sneak into his hiding place and slit his throat in the middle of the night, Kimaru's idea, or blackmail him into leaving Fish Island, Rin's idea. However, the problem of power vacuum later on is not addressed in any of those proposals. Once Gado was gone, the cycle of abuse would be restarted by someone else who was just as corrupt. One intriguing question came up during their conversation. Besides Gado, who stood to gain the most from this human trafficking organization? The response was straightforward. Kumo, who in recent history was Kumo's fiercest adversary. It's Konaha. It would be ideal if they could create a scenario in which Konaha had to intervene and destroy Gado's operation. The peace treaty between Kumo and Konaha would prevent Konaha from engaging in this unlawful activity. In order to gain an advantage at Kumo's expense, Konaha would be unable to take over Gado's operation and get away with it. Unlike any other hidden village, in order to deny Kumo power, Konaha could only dismantle the human trafficking organization and stop a recurrence of the same circumstance. Just what they required. It was a smart move on Naruto's part to call in the cavalry. Totally brilliant, but potentially dangerous if they were unlucky. Using a package from Rin, Haku sneaked out to Wave one evening and visited the Tazuna family. Please request a formal mission from Konaha. There is enough Ryo in here to cover a B-rank mission. It's of utmost importance that no one mentions anything about our family. No name, no description, not even our relationship. Our safety depends on this. Haku gave Tazuna the package and bowed. With a solemn nod, Tazuna took the object. Haku pulled out a scroll and gave it to the carpenter, saying, "This one is for you. There are detailed accounts of why we are doing this and what you should expect. Please read it as soon as you can and pass this information to your most trusted friends. We really can't have our names link us back here. Tell everyone you named the bride after Fishcake or something. I apologize for my family for imposing this on you." Tazuna stopped the young boy with a raised hand. "That's enough. Please don't apologize. This is the least we can do." Before vanishing into the night, Haku made his final deep bow. 2 weeks had passed since Haku gave Tazuna Rin's instructions. A message from their favorite carpenter was delivered to them this morning by a Wave fisherman. A group of Konaha shinobi would be arriving in Wave in 2 days. The second and third phases were in standby the night before Konaha shinobi arrived on Fish Island. They would get on a boat and sail north for Hot Spring Country. The children decided to have some fun exploring the haunted ruin of Uzuio since they only had 2 days left on Fish Island. Naruto took notes in a scroll while closely examining the symbols carved on broken pillars encircling a courtyard overrun with weeds. In the Uzuio ruin, the same pattern of swirls, big and small, had been seen time and again. He verified that the entire ruin of Uzuio was arranged in a gigantic swirl. After climbing to the island's highest point earlier today, he was standing in the exact center of the enormous swirl at the moment, gazing at a smaller swirl that was carved like a sundial into the old stone block that stood in the center of the courtyard. After massaging his temples, Naruto concluded that the unique Uzumaki clan must truly enjoy their name's sake. He had a headache from staring at them all day. "You all right there?" his brother Haku inquired, a little worried by Naruto's apparent lack of activity. "Yeah, just a little tired." The blonde boy sat on the floor and leaned back against the carved stone. Feeling a little queasy, he began counting his breaths while closing his eyes. Rin previously informed him that by bringing the body and spirit into harmony, meditation offered minor healing benefits. In addition to being an excellent chakra control exercise, a few minutes of meditation should help you get rid of a slight headache. Karen looked around anxiously, waiting for monsters to leap out at her, but the red-headed tag-along interrupted, saying, "Maybe it's this place. It's haunted. I told you. My mom used to say this place is cursed. She was totally against us moving back here. My dad insisted that we should live in this dingy town. Cammy knows why, and then they both died 1 month after we moved here. I'm begging you. Can we please just leave now? Before some ghosts eat us?" Kimaru deadpanned, "There is no such thing as ghost." Karen gave him a frown. "Fine, don't believe me, just remember I'll be the one saying, 'I told you so,' when we are being eaten." Haku refrained from rolling his eyes at the redhead's prank. His response was interrupted when he saw Naruto's body go from completely limp to suddenly rigid. "Nothing is going to eat us," he said. Kimaru caught the blonde before his head hit the floor. Beating Haku by a split second, he gave his new brother an urgent slap on the whiskered cheeks and exclaimed, "Naruto! What's wrong? Wake up!" No one answered. Haku turned and saw Karen screaming inhumanly as she fell to the ground in fetal position. The girl's mouth was foaming and her eyes were wide with shock. In order to incapacitate Karen before she hurt herself, he pulled a senbon from his sleeve and stabbed her in a pressure point on her neck. Haku picked up the girl and said, "Something is very wrong. We need to take them home now." After gently picking Naruto up, Kimaru ran as quickly as he could. When Naruto opened his eyes, it was pitch black. Something else was waiting there. In the shadows, Naruto was aware of its enormous number of teeth. It desired to consume him. Uzumaki. The creature snarled ominously in the darkness. Two red eyes glowed and sprang at him fortunately, before it could hurt him. Crisscrossing bars with loud screeching noises held back the thing's sharp claws. Naruto's body froze in shock as he silently stared back at the beast. His worst memory was of this beast. "This place, it reeks." "Uzumaki!" roared the creature, which had blood-red eyes, teeth, claws, and tails. "Shut up!" The animal snarled despite his heart pounding like a stampede in his chest. Naruto sprang to his feet and screamed at his nightmare in defiance. "You stinking furball! I said shut up! You don't scare me, you want to eat me? You can't even get out of this cage?" The animal angrily snarled and scratched at the cage. It cried out, "I will devour you." Naruto retorted, "You will devour your own hairball and choke on it." "Uzumaki." The blonde boy pointed at the beast. "That's it, I told you to shut up. Now you deserve the cone of shame," he said suddenly. Blue chakra grew from his finger in the shape of tendrils, encircling the beast's neck like a huge cone collar. The chakra collar extended forward and covered the beast's head like a lamp cover, causing it to scream in sheer shock. Its expression could only be described as humorous. It roared deathly, "What have you done?" It did no harm to the cone of shame, but its jaw snapped, its claws swiped, and its tail swished pointlessly. As he watched his childhood nightmare struggle in vain against the cone, Naruto tilted his head and said, "Mom told me, the only way to face my fear is to conquer it. Mom is always right. Of course you are not scary at all." A stream of curses was screamed at the boy by the beast. Mom will wash your mouth out with soap if she hears you." "Do you want me to wash your mouth out?" said Naruto. The beast, panting from barely contained rage, snarled angrily at the boy. Naruto sat down and cleared his throat, saying, "Good now, let's stop with the childish death threats and converse like civilized adults. There is no need to shout. Allow me to start. Hello. My name is Naruto. Pleasure to meet you. Your turn." The beast roared loudly and slammed all 9 of its tails down, screaming, "Get out!" The human boy was blasted away as a tsunami of red chakra erupted from the cage. Karen had spent the last hour rocking back and forth in the room's corner, saying the same thing over and over again. "It will eat us, it will eat us, it will eat us, it will eat us." On the bed at the other end of the room lay Naruto's unconscious body. Rin whispered wearily, "Hang in there," as she restored Naruto's body. Her hands radiated green light. Unknown stress was causing the boy's main chakra coil in his navel to crack, and his heart continued to beat erratically. She had been working continuously for an hour. She exerted every effort to keep her son from experiencing cardiac arrest. At this point, her chakra was dangerously low. Naruto let out a painful groan. Rin muttered, "That's it, you can do it." The strain was making her tremble. Karen stopped suddenly in the corner. "It's asleep," she yelled. The last of Rin's dwindling focus was broken by her loud voice. With a feeble gasp, the blind healer sagged in the direction of the bed. Kimaru and Haku were quick enough to grab her before she fell on top of her patient. With a moan, Naruto opened his eyes weakly. "Everything hurts," he grumbled. His family gave him a firm group hug despite his protest. Karen got up shakily and said, "It wants to eat you." She approached the blonde with apparent hesitancy. "It hates us, Uzumaki." Haku scuffed in frustration, "Let him rest, you crazy redhead. What are you?" Naruto cut off his brother's tirade and said in a low voice, "Yeah, you are right. It tried to eat me." "Why is there a rabbit in my bed?" Naruto returned to his vivacious self after getting a good night's sleep and taking the recommended amount of nutrient pills. "Alright. So yesterday was strange according to Karen. The ruin of Uzuio was likely haunted, and a 9-tailed furball attempted to devour him in his head. He did not, however, anticipate waking up to find a fluffy brown rabbit chewing on his hair and sitting in his face." Haku rolled out of bed and yawned. "Is that a rabbit? It looks more like a dog to me, or maybe a cat. I honestly don't know anyway. I think the animal has been there since yesterday." Kimaru's joints cracked and he stretched. "It has long ears, but that is not a rabbit, it's a fox. Maybe. It does have a long fluffy tail. That menace hitched a ride when I carried you home yesterday. I almost dropped you when that animal fell out of the sky and landed on your head. It didn't try to eat your face, so I figure it's harmless. Its fur is nice and soft. I can make you a nice scarf out of it, whatever it is." Then Naruto pulled his hand back and sucked on his bleeding finger, saying, "Hey, don't scare him. Of course he is harmless. He is a cute little bunny. Ouch. He bit me. Okay, so he is not a bunny. Those teeth are sharp." Haku laughed as he collapsed back onto the bed. Rin greeted her children as she opened the bedroom door. "Morning, boys, breakfast is ready." "Mom, can I keep him? Please?" Rin let out a sigh. "Please take me with you." It all went smoothly. As usual, Rin and her family went about their day. They bartered with grocers, talked to the elderly residents of the town, opened the clinic on time, and hung their laundry outside to dry. Rin visited Gado's place to inquire about the condition of his broken leg, which was purposefully set off by a trap, but he didn't need to know that the children spent the afternoon fishing and playing on the dock. There was no tell whatsoever. Nobody should be aware that they were prepared to leave that evening. They were loading the boat for the journey when Karen caught them in the middle of the night. Kimaru asked evenly, "How did you know?" From his wrists, 2 sharp bones stuck out, digging painfully into her neck. He would end her if she said one incorrect word. Attempting to explain herself, Karen furrowed her brow. "It's really hard to explain. I know where you are. I can just feel it. You guys are different. You are more. I don't know. You are calm, like a whisper. Come on. I really don't know how to explain it." Natural chakra sensor, Rin reflected. She said, "What else can you tell me?" To the girl. Karen took a moment to respond. "They're coming, not the ones with Gado. Gado's goons feel different, too small. The new ones are more like, mixed up, loud and hungry. They're coming from 2 directions. West and southeast. So many of them. They're almost here. I don't want to be here. When they come, please take me with you." "You can't just run away with us." "What about your family and friends?" replied Naruto. "I don't have any, alright? You people are the only ones I have, especially you, Uzumaki." "There is no one left," Karen begged. Dumbly, Naruto blinked. "Oh, so we are Uzumaki?" "Yes," Karen said sharply. "Remember? It hates Uzumaki. It wants to eat us? So we're like cousins?" Karen was so frustrated that she wanted to slap her forehead. "Yes." Naruto looked over at Rin. "Mom, can we bring her along, please?" Kimaru, Rin, and Haku all sighed. The 3rd Hokage thought about the mission report he had just received while he absently chewed on his pipe. The mission began as a straightforward request for a B rank as his final request. An elderly fisherman from Fish Island asked his friend in Wave to submit a request to eliminate a local gang of thugs and a small-time rogue shinobi. Upon arrival, the team discovered a fully operational human trafficking network smuggling refugees from Water Country to Lightning Country. It was not a significant discovery in and of itself. What was keeping him awake at night was the political implications of it. Since they no longer have a dependable method of recruiting bloodline wielders from Kiri to join them, he could only imagine how angry Kumo must be at the moment. He had other issues besides Kumo. Coincidentally, the day Konaha shinobi arrived on Fish Island, Kiri dispatched a group of hunter ninjas. You can only imagine how successful that was. It seems that Kiri hunter nins were searching for members of a particular clan that took part in a recent uprising against Mizukage. To put it briefly, Kiri accused Konaha of letting their target get away and of plotting to help the rival group in Kiri overthrow Mizukage. Of course, the charge was untrue. That was all they were saying to protect themselves from failing at their mission. However, Konaha now needed to make a big show of demonstrating to Kiri and Kumo that its position was completely neutral. In other words, Konaha needed to allocate additional personnel to keep an eye on Fish Island and the surrounding areas in order to stop any new human trafficking rings from emerging anytime soon. Kumo would be denied additional authority as a result, and Kiri would have no justification for accusing Konaha of supporting rebels in their civil war. S-rank Konaha resources would be needed for this B-rank pay. What a mess. When Hiruzen's mind turned to a related topic, he grimaced. The missions team lead, Anko Mitarashi, discovered documents from Gado's hiding place that proved he had been supplying a growing secret village in Rice Country with a significant number of bodies, both dead and alive. Even worse, Gado had a slight snake odor. The fact that they were able to cut off Orochimaru's supply of test subjects may therefore be a blessing in disguise. He must have been busy with his traitor student. He ought to request that Jiraiya monitor Rice Country closely going forward. The 3rd could not help but sigh deeply as he thought of his perverted pupil. Jiraiya had been working like a man possessed ever since they lost Naruto in an effort to locate his missing godson. The Toad Sage devoted all of his time and resources to Lightning Country. At times, he believed Jiraiya was attempting to atone for his previous transgression, but most of the time, he was certain Jiraiya was punishing himself for abandoning Naruto when he most needed him. Not for the first time, the elderly Hokage questioned whether shinobi are paid enough. Consider his team. 2 of his equally talented students went into self-imposed exile due to heartbreak, and his most favored student turned out to be a violent megalomaniac. This perilous profession had a history of consuming decent people and then spitting them out with their bodies and souls mangled. A knock on the door roused him from his gloomy thoughts. "Come in." As his new Anbu captain reported in for the night, Hiruzen put down his pipe. His face was perfectly concealed by the weasel mask, but his small frame and black hair made it obvious who he really was. Not that Konaha's shinobi rank doesn't know. "Hokage-sama, we have a problem. The night will be long and restless." Karen looked curiously at the face of her new guardian. She could not have been older than 25, but this blind, scarred woman was caring for a motley crew of orphans by herself. It was a mystery how she could have done that at all, given that she was clearly blind. Despite having disfiguring scars on her forehead, Rin, who had no last name, was a stunning woman. She was acutely reminded of cats by her warm brown eyes. Despite the fact that they were dim due to blindness. Despite her disability, she exuded confidence due to her calm and elegant demeanor. The two purple rectangular tattoos on her cheeks, which were her most distinctive feature, were extremely exotic. However, her striking appearance was significantly softened by the short brown hair that framed her heart-shaped face. Karen thought it was a bad fashion choice to get a face tattoo, but to each their own. After spending the entire day gazing at those markings, she felt compelled to ask, "Hey, Rin-san, why did you tattoo your face? Is it like a clan marking?" Her guardian turned to the curious girl and stopped what she was doing, which was grinding dry herbs. "Interesting question. I don't know honestly. I'm not aware I have any markings on my face until now. Good to know. I should probably wear something to cover them up," she replied and continued to work. Karen's mouth fell open. "What? How can you not know you have tattoos on your face?" Rin gave a casual shrug. "I'm blind. Still, you should know." Naruto, her cousin, sighed and said, "Lay off. Sis' mom was badly injured a while ago. She lost her memory. It's not like she can feel the tattoo on her face or anything. She didn't know because no one thought it's a big deal, so no one mentioned it to her. It's not uncommon. See, I have whisker birthmarks on my cheeks and Kimaru has those clan tattoos on his forehead." "All right, so they are not a big deal then. Why would you want to cover them up? They're pretty and they suit you," Karen said with a contemplative hum, asking Rin to elaborate. Rin laughed. "Thank you. You are flattering me as to why. It's because of my shinobi training." Karen blinked, perplexed. "What do you mean? All right, let's start from the beginning. Imagine you were a trained kunoichi. You are injured. You can't remember anything. What would you do?" "Seek help, of course," Rin probed. "Seek help from whom?" "Hospital," Karen said haltingly. She was beginning to understand. "So an injured ninja shows up in a hospital. Do you think people would just help that person?" "No, they would want to know if the shinobi is an enemy or an ally. The first thing people would want to know is who you are and where you are from. If you can't answer that simple question, then you are in deep trouble. If you are an enemy, your fate will be torture and interrogation. Even if you look like an ally, they will still suspect you to be a spy, or that you are a sleeper agent subjected to brainwashing genjutsu. Simply put, they can't trust you since they can't trust you." Karen concluded with a concise statement, "Your fate will still be torture and interrogation. It sucks." "That's right. Do you understand it now?" Karen gave a quiet nod. "The safest thing to do is to hide your identity and pretend to be a civilian. That's why you want to cover up your tattoo. It's too distinct." "Exactly." The redhead scowled a little as she considered this new knowledge. A few minutes later, she spoke once more. "I still don't quite get it. If you were trying to blend in as civilians, then why are you all training so hard to be ninjas anyway?" Rin dropped the pestle she was holding in the middle of a taijutsu routine on the surface of the small river beside their camp. Haku stopped. Kimaru let several kunais fall to the ground after ceasing to spin them with the tips of his fingers. Naruto landed silently in front of Karen after performing a backflip from the tree branch he had been walking on upside down. The blonde remarked plainly, "Well, because it's fun, for me, anyway." Haku continued, "I need to control my bloodline limit so I don't hurt people by accident. It puts food on the table. Literally, traps are useful. I can also sell medicine and work as a healer. It pays well, too," Rin replied. Kimaru gave a shrug. "A half-trained ninja is a dead ninja." As Karen fought to keep the leaf on her forehead from swaying, she questioned, "What about me? Why do I have to practice?" Rin replied, "You have a rare talent. It's a crime not to train you. Do you know how rare it is to be a natural chakra sensor of your caliber? People would kill to have your gift." The girl, feeling strangely proud of herself, asked doubtfully, "Really?" And they believed she was talented. Here she was, surrounded by people who could do amazing things like walk on water or walk upside down like a bat. That's really awesome. "Really, plus, it's always a good idea to know how to defend yourself. You can never be too prepared," her guardian replied. Karen was inspired. "So, basically, we are like a clan of ninjas in disguise, right?" Rin said uncertainly, "Yes, I suppose you could say that." Karen chewed over her thoughts, trying hard to put them into words. "We should totally have an official clan name and clan symbol. I mean, there are 5 of us and 5 different hair colors. It's obvious we look too different to be related," she began to say. "Nevertheless, we are together as a family, so," but stopped when she became aware that everyone was looking at her. Her face was burning with a flush. Naruto said, "That's an awesome idea, sis. With all, think about it, we can name our own clan. We can call ourselves something cool like the Crouching Tiger Hidden Dragon Clan. Or the Rock and Roll Clan. We'll be badass. No. Everyone shot that notion in the bud right away before it could spread. Naruto objected, saying, "Hey, I have good naming sense." Kimaru stared at him blankly. "You named your pet dog, Fluffy." "Because he is fluffy, duh," the blonde answered, giving his pet a loving cheek rub. "And he is not a dog, he is a rabid dog fox cat, just look at him, he is so soft and cute and cuddly." The aforementioned rabid dog fox cat began nibbling on one of Naruto's eyebrow tips. "Anyway," Rin said, guiding the discussion back, "the name has to be simple and inconspicuous, it should fit us all and be plain enough at the same time. We are trying to blend in as civilians, remember? It would be completely counterproductive if we call ourselves the Awesome Fighting Ninja Clan, or something equally silly." "I resent that," Naruto protested, but everyone decided to ignore him. "We are moving around a lot, so the best disguise for us is a family of traveling traders or something similar. How about the Nomad Clan? It's simple and it fits our cover," Haku offered. Karen enthusiastically agreed. She drew the symbol on a blank piece of scroll so that everyone could see it. "It'll work, I like it. As for clan mark, we can just combine the purple rectangle mark on Rin-san with the 2 red circles on Kimaru, and voila." She said the end effect resembled a wagon with 2 red wheels and a purple carriage. After pouting for a minute, Naruto gave in. "Okay, you win, you have better naming sense than I do." "Of course I do. Little brother, now we just need to find ourselves a merchant's wagon and we'll be all set. Those of you who agree, say, aye." Aye. In order to purchase a wagon, each member of the Nomad's clan put in a lot of effort to earn money in their minds. The wagon represented their familial ties in addition to serving as a convincing prop for their disguise as civilian traders. Rin's success as a healer in the community was not surprising. Her ability to use medical ninjutsu subtly was highly regarded everywhere. Rin's herbology lectures were as well received by Haku and, somewhat surprisingly, Karen as Fisher by Water. The two of them succeeded in providing local clinics with high-quality herbs and medications. Kimaru was a superb hunter due to his exceptional shinobi training. His proceeds from the sale of game meats and rare pelts made a substantial contribution to their cause. But even his family found Naruto's special talent perplexing. The blonde boy was able to tame animals after capturing them in the wild. After having to make a decision, Rin prevented Naruto from taming wild bears with the intention of selling them to a circus. The additional attention was completely unnecessary for them. Naruto was forced to restrict his targets to low-profile creatures like birds and deer. They eventually saved up enough cash after working hard for several months to commission a custom-built wagon from their old friend Tizuna in Wave and purchase a draft horse in Fire Country. Although the carpenter was pleased to see them, he cautioned them that too many awkward questions were being asked by the frequent Konaha ninjas in the area. His warning was taken seriously by the Nomads. They made the decision to stay away from Wave for a while and only use messenger birds to communicate with Tizuna's family. Inari, Tizuna's grandson, was especially dissatisfied with the arrangement, but it was the best they could do given the situation. The Nomads had a great cover with their new wagon. They had little trouble traveling across borders and visiting different communities. They eventually managed to set up meetings with Tizuna's family through messenger birds in a number of popular tourist locations throughout elemental continents. The two families made a concerted effort to communicate. As an aside, Tsunami, Tizuna's daughter, recently got married again. She opened a fish cake shop near the Great Naruto Bridge with her new husband. Kaiza imagined their surprise when the company became a huge success that no one had predicted. It began as a clever cover story to prevent people from associating the bridge's name with the young blonde child. The spiraling fish cake, which resembles the Great Naruto Bridge in shape, is now considered Wave Country's specialty dish that every visitor must try. Naruto snarled angrily, this is not working," and then fell to the ground around him. The 24 clones he created faltered and vanished. Fluffy, his pet rabbit, dog, fox, and cat, leapt down from his head and wandered over to a nearby wild berry bush to sniff at a vole nest. Haku gave a headshake. "Same problem again. Little brother, you need to use less chakra. I only asked for 1 clone." Wailing, the blonde boy sat up. "I just can't. That's the smallest amount I can produce. It actually hurts when I try to squeeze the chakra output down so much. I don't understand. I can do substitution and transformation just fine. Why can't I make a simple clone? Every time I try to make one, 20 of them pop out." The boy with the raven hair sighed and tangled Naruto's unkempt hair, saying, "Only you, little brother, you are a chakra monster." He slammed his hands to the ground and created a 2-story tall ice arch without the use of hand seals, saying, "Better chakra control should fix it. You need better control, otherwise you can't learn medical jutsu later on." With a pout, Naruto accepted his fate from the underside of the arch. He ice climbed up and stood motionless at the top. hanging upside down with only the soles of his feet touching the slick surface. With his eyes closed and his posture relaxed, he said, "Ready." Haku began throwing ice marbles at his younger brother after receiving the cue. Dodge with your whole body, only use your hands to block. If you can't avoid being hit, you should feel the projectiles as soon as they enter your sphere of influence. It was clearly difficult for Naruto to keep his feet firmly planted on the ice and keep his body's chakra levels steady. Karen stuck her head out of the wagon and said, "Try to expel an even amount of chakra, it's fluctuating too much, I can feel it from over here." Naruto gave his sister a loud raspberry blow. He was hit squarely in the eyes for the distraction. The redhead returned to her work after laughing at his situation. Kimaru was sitting on the little bed inside the wagon on the desk beside him. Karen was making herbal concoction. "They're having too much fun, I hope they'll be quiet and let you sleep." Kimaru answered, "It's okay, I'm not really tired." Karen handed him a cup of a foul-smelling liquid and rolled her eyes, saying, "Of course you're not." She gave the order, "Drink." Kimaru grimaced and took the medicine without protest. The taste was making his pale face a little green. The taste was worse than the smell. Karen was uncaring. "Next time you feel like defying Rin-san's order and use your bloodline limit for more than 30 minutes a day, I'll make sure your medication tastes like shoe polish." The redhead cackles in sadistic satisfaction at the horror on Kimaru's face. Rin grinned to herself as she tended to the cooking fire. While listening to the chaos around her, she expressed her gratitude to Kami for bringing those children into her life. Not for the last time, they were decent children, as good as she could hope for. Being the youngest, Naruto had spent the most time with her. The 7-year-old was a ball of boundless warmth and vitality. Like a miniature son, their family was held together by his innate ability to make friends. Naruto had an almost obsessive passion for shinobi training. Rin surmised that the hyperactive boy was forced to be active all the time because of his inhuman stamina and chakra capacity. Haku exemplified what it meant to be a loyal brother. Naruto's quirk was always accommodated by the effeminate boy, who also assisted him in training as much as possible. Rin had a suspicion that without Naruto's encouragement, Haku would not have made half as much progress in his own training. Rin laughed as she heard Haku instructing while hurling more projectiles at his younger brother, saying, "Keep your feet planted. It's okay to get hit, it'll hurt you more if you fall down from that height." If Naruto fell, she knew the boy would catch him. After spending some time with Kimaru, Rin realized that the shy young man was starting to open up to his siblings, even though at first he was a little hard to read. She thought whoever had reared the boy had done a dreadful job. Who are the monsters that would confine a child to a cellar and rear him for use as a weapon? She was horrified to discover that Kimaru hardly knew how to enjoy life. When she first took him under her wing, Rin could still recall the bone-crushing embrace she got when she consented to keep a useless potted plant in the wagon. Because it's pretty, Kimaru had confided in her with shyness. Rin was more than willing to give in to him. Karen's direct nature made it easy for her to blend in with the group. Perhaps because Rin was the only adult present, the young girl genuinely admired her and made it her goal to discipline her siblings. The girl would fight with Naruto like a real sister and boss Kimaru around. Despite his stoic appearance, she was not going to talk about her not-so-secret crush on Haku, even though it was pretty funny. Following supper, the nomads gathered around the campfire to socialize. For several months, they have been traversing Fire Country. In order to reach Grass Country, they made the decision to travel through rural areas rather than big cities because they were concerned about Konaha ninja snooping in Wave. Kagaya clan's dead bone pulse, the white-haired boy's bloodline limit, allowed him to control bones by distributing calcium throughout his body through his chakra. He could even use the fast-growing bones as weapons or as a layer of extremely thick armor by having them protrude from his skin. However, there was a high cost associated with this seemingly miraculous bloodline limit. Kimaru had to deal with the neurotoxin his body produced in addition to consuming an excessive amount of calcium to promote bone growth. In order to preserve the integrity of his body would naturally produce a strong neurotoxin as a byproduct to numb pain and promote healing. Each time he used his bloodline limit to manipulate bones, long-term use of this power would prevent his body from producing enough enzymes to break down the neurotoxin. In other words, Kimaru would suffer a terrible death before turning 20 if he continued to use his bloodline limit for a long time. They decided to stop Kimaru from using his power carelessly. As a temporary fix, they also made him drink a nasty mixture that might dissolve the neurotoxin that was still present in his body. As a precaution, their strategy was working so far, but they were running low on some essential components for the medication. They decided it would be simpler to simply go to Grass Country and gather the raw ingredients themselves, even though they could get those ingredients for an absurd price. "Alright, kids, tomorrow we will cross the border and enter Grass Country. We need to make a shopping list. Kimaru, please write this down," Rin said. "First, We'll need to look for yellow-tipped pepper, blue winter grass, and coral vine. They are all native to grass country. If we find them in the wild, we should collect seeds and cuttings so we can grow them ourselves. We should be able to find dried ingredients in town as well. Be careful when you walk through tall grass. There are lots of snakes in grass country. Is there anything else we need? His hand was raised. We should keep a couple purple diamondbacks. If we see them we can use the snake venom to make an all-purpose antidote. Oh, and if we come across a bamboo field, we should catch a couple green lady as well. Good idea, Haku. Please give Naruto a hand when he sees them. The snakes would be very easy to catch using ice. Rin concurred. Anything else? We should collect a few silver weaver spiders. The price for silver silk is grossly inflated in fire country. Our supply of ninja wire is down to 10 feet, and the cheapest way is to make our own. Kimaru made the suggestion. We most definitely need new knives and a new batch of kunai, shuriken, and senbon. The old ones are falling apart, Karen stated. Rin flinched. All of their sharp, pointy ninja tools were repurposed from former shinobi battlegrounds. Even though they took great care of their tools, wear and tear was inevitable. It was never quite the same, even though they had been using Haku's own ice duplicate for some time. For starters, the tool's weight was off. Ice senbon was functional, but because of the weight reduction, ice shuriken and ice kunai lacked the punch's force. We'll need to find a blacksmith who doesn't ask questions. It might take a while, but we can stock up when we find one. Speaking of blacksmith, Giant needs new shoes, too. Naruto replied. He was in charge of looking after their draft horse, Giant. That one should be easy. We'll do that as soon as we hit town, Rin replied. When we are in town, maybe we can buy new clothes. The old ones are getting really ratty. There is only so much I can mend, Karen responded. Rin completely agreed. From the way we train, I'm more surprised we don't need new clothes more often. Naruto confessed remorsefully. We'll also need a new dictionary. The old one was well. Fluffy ate it. Rin's forehead quirked. Did Fluffy eat the history books, math books, and science books? With his mother's tone making him perspire a little, Naruto swiftly denied. No, not those, just the dictionary. It was an accident, really. Good, we'll buy a new dictionary, ink, brushes, and blank scrolls. I want you all to practice calligraphy. I need you all to be prepared. Even though I can't teach you sealing, it's one of the most important skill any shinobi should know. It's also one of the most guarded skill in all elemental countries, so it's virtually impossible to find any books about sealing in a common bookstore. The art of sealing is usually taught through apprenticeship, or sometimes passed down within the clan. Unfortunately, I do not have any talent regarding this discipline, so I can't teach you anything other than calligraphy. The best seal I can make is the most basic storage seal. I can't even do that much now that I'm blind. Rin was asked to elaborate by Naruto. What does calligraphy have to do with sealing? If we need steady hands, wouldn't painting or knitting help? At the direction of the blonde boy, Rin grinned. The question was a good one. True, calligraphy is basically stylized writing. Essentially it's about drawing symbols by using ink as a medium. However, a large part of sealing is about constructing a seal by building a detailed command array, or designing a counter seal by decoding a compressed matrix. Practicing calligraphy would enhance your ability to identify subtle variances in the function lines, so you can make a seal more effective. Rin changed the subject because she could tell Naruto had lost her train of thought in the middle of her explanation. Enough on that. There is another reason why I want to get more stationaries. I plan to stock up during harvest season and rent a place in town for the winter. You will all be enrolled in a winter school this year. I expect you all to do well. Treat this like a 4-month undercover assignment to blend in as civilians while gathering critical information. Anticipating his first shinobi mission, Naruto's blue eyes were glistening. Wow, an undercover assignment, that's totally badass. Rin smiled at his response. It was just what she desired, saying, "You are all going to be stuck in school for the whole winter and be bored out of your mind," would have had a completely different reaction from Naruto. Konaha Ninja Academy, 7 years following the defeat of Kyuubi. Hinata Hyuga surreptitiously watched her classmates. This class consisted of 41 pupils. 7 members of the main clans of Konaha Hyuga, Aburame, Akamichi, Uchiha, Inazuka, Nara, and Yamanaka were present, including herself. The others came from civilian families and small clans. Hinata realized that as the heir to the Hyuga clan, she had very little opportunity to interact with people her own age. She would even go so far as to acknowledge that she didn't really understand the typical behavior of her peers. Hinata was unable to defend the actions of her classmates. Consider Sakura Haruno, a pink-haired girl who had been Ino Yamanaka's best friend before they even started attending the academy. She would claim that Sakura had been secretly crushing on Ino for a long time if her theory was right, and now Sakura pulled a 180 and abruptly declared herself Ino's rival for the last Uchiha's affection following the Uchiha massacre. For heaven's sake, they were 7 years old. She couldn't understand why anyone would want a romantic interest at this age. It's likely that some of them still wet their beds at night. That ought to be a more urgent matter. Surprisingly, more girls in her class would swoon over the last Uchiha than not, despite the fact that none of them had reached puberty yet. Why would anyone fling themselves at a boy who wasn't deserving of the attention, anyway? The logic there was beyond her comprehension. Hinata was genuinely unable to see the attraction, perhaps due to her pride as a Hyuga. She might be guilty of emotional repression because she is a Hyuga, but the Uchiha boy was just plain gloomy. His tragic past did not give him the right to treat everyone like trash. Despite the fact that it was true, did he fail to recognize the distinction between arrogance and pride? Would he die if he occasionally showed kindness to others? Why would her classmates be attracted to this snobbish and frigid boy? Were they sexually aroused? Hinata genuinely hoped that the person she would fall in love with, hopefully after puberty, would be worthy of her affection and would motivate her to improve herself. Additionally, to withstand her father's most intense Hyuga glare, TM, that person needed to have steely nerves. She had not yet seen anyone with that kind of potential. Anyway, it didn't really matter. Her present responsibility was to be a respected future leader in the eyes of her uncle and cousin, a powerful clan heir in the eyes of her father, and an inspirational role model in the eyes of her sister. Hinata's life's ambition was to bridge the divide between her clan's two branches. She would, however, first make an effort to be someone deserving of the cadets' protection. Taking the Rookie of the Year award away from the previous Uchiha is the perfect way to demonstrate it. However, what exactly is so appealing about a 7-year-old boy who might or might not still be soaking his bed? Hinata shuddered finally and decided to stop thinking about it. Grass Country was a lot of fun for the nomads. Their wagon was overflowing with merchandise by the end of the harvest season, and they had more than enough cash to spend the winter. By the first snowfall, they had rented a place on the outskirts of Hemp Town after touring a dozen settlements in grass. 2 days into winter school, Naruto soon realized that Rin's lovely words had tricked him. He was a near-brained mess by the end of the first week. The teacher's insistence on treating them all like idiots baffled him. His best guess was that the teacher had to lower his standards to accommodate his classmates because, aside from his siblings, all of them were true idiots. Really, I'm a little bird, fly, 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 was the extent of the science and literature curriculum at this school, and he was doomed. There was only one class of 30 students and one teacher, a senile old man named Aoki, at the winter school. Because it was so small, the age range of the pupils in the class was 7 years old, including Naruto himself. To 13 years old, he endured enough agony to remain awake in class, but to make matters worse, the 13-year-old class bully, who also happened to be the teacher's grandson, Hokage, had chosen to tease him during recess. He had to physically stop his siblings from murdering the poor oaf. The first time Hokage tried to strike him, they had to keep civilian cover as part of their mission, and it wouldn't be appropriate to punch someone in the nose during a playground altercation. They were ninjas. They began playing practical jokes on the bully because they knew how to be subtle. Whenever the oaf attempted to strike Hokage, Naruto would apply itching powder to his trousers. His lunch was always laced with laxatives when the bully stole it. The best part was that their fun lasted for a good 2 months before Hokage decided school was for losers and quit completely because the bully was too dim to see the connection sooner. When the new year arrived, an intriguing event finally occurred on New Year's Eve. There was a celebration at the nearby temple. Rin gave each of them a red envelope containing Ryo notes before taking them to the festival. Kimaru, you go with Naruto. Haku, you go with Karen. Stay close, and don't spend all your money on sweets. Meet me at the temple by midnight. We'll watch the firework together. Now go have a good time. Naruto was on the verge of hyperplunging. He was instructed to spend money on toys and candy without adult supervision for the first time in his life. Even more lost was Kimaru. He didn't know how he was supposed to enjoy himself in this circumstance. They made the decision to stop by every booth in the hopes of coming up with a better idea by the end of the evening. Hokage and his group of criminals cornered them close to a dark alley, ruining their good mood. Hokage gave a menacing crack of his knuckles and said, "No one is here to save you now, midget. Hand over your money if you cooperate. Maybe I won't mess you up too bad. I'm hoping you won't, so I can have more fun with you." Naruto was trembling at this point from a great deal of self-control. Unfortunately, the bully mistook his attempt to control his temper for fear. The bully mocked, "Afraid now? Scaredy cat, are you gonna cry?" His lackeys laughed and howled behind him. Kimaru placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder and spoke quietly, understanding that his younger brother was too angry to speak. "Hokage-san, could you please consider letting us go? We won't tell the adults about this. There is no need for violence." "No need for violence? Ahahaha." Hokage pushed Kimaru back with a meaty hand and slapped Naruto's head. The bully roughed up the two shinobi in training because they refused to use chakra as their natural reaction. Hokage knocked them around for a few minutes before taking the red envelope Rin gave him for the festival out of Naruto's shirt. After giving the blonde boy a final blow to the stomach, Hokage and his thugs finally left them alone, saying, "You losers are weak now, scram, I'm sick of looking at your ugly faces." Kimaru straightened up and gently used his sleeve to wipe Naruto's dirt-stained face. After the gang had left, he took out his own allowance and placed the envelope in Naruto's pocket, saying, "You all right there? Here, take this, we can share." The white-haired boy took his brother's hand and walked him toward the crowd, saying, "Let's go back to the festival, I think I saw a ramen stand somewhere." Naruto was furious. He wished he could defend himself, or at least fight back. The undercover assignment was terrible. He was not permitted to use his left pinky to kick the bully in any way he pleased. It was just enragement. When he felt a foolish hand attempting to pick his pocket, his long-suppressed rage finally erupted. He would not put up with theft after being robbed once that evening. Naruto yanked the criminal out of the crowd and grabbed the offending limb with a low snarl. To his horror, the pickpocket let out a cry of pain. The bones beneath him cracked in multiple places, and the arm he was grasping snapped like a twig. Naruto was too upset to notice that the red envelope that Kimaru had given him earlier had fallen limp from the person's grasp. The thief was only a young girl, roughly his age, and filthy. Fearfully, Naruto took a quick step back and released the broken arm as if it had burned him. Kimaru responded instantly. He picked up Naruto and the hurt child before the onlookers realized what was happening, then body flicked off. Rin discovered Naruto hiding on the house's roof later that evening with tears streaming down his face. Her youngest son was embracing his knees. Rin took a seat beside the boy. "She is asleep. It was a clean break with regular medical jutsu treatment. It would heal back to normal in a week." Naruto didn't say anything. Rin inquired, "So what did you learn?" There was no blame in her tone. Naruto let out a whine. "I hurt people, I'm a monster." "No." Rin reprimanded abruptly. "No, you're not wrong. Answer, try again." In a low voice, the boy said, "I need to watch my temper." "Yes, what else?" Quickly, Naruto said, "I need to be more patient." "And?" Naruto acknowledged, "and I don't like bullies." Rin extended her arm to embrace the boy. "Naruto, learn from your mistake. Never forget that you are a ninja. You are trained to be stronger and faster than normal civilians." I could quote words of wisdom like, "With great power comes great responsibilities until the cows come home." But that wouldn't make a difference. Refresh my memory. Tell me why you are training so hard to be a ninja. Training is fun, at least that's what I thought in the beginning. Now I want to have power to protect myself and my family, replied Naruto. Rin asked, even though she already knew the answer, "You regret hurting that girl, is that correct?" Naruto gave a firm nod. "Yes, I regret it very much. I wish I could take it all back." "If you didn't mean to hurt her, then why did you do it in the first place?" Naruto groaned and tugged at his short hair as he replayed the event in his mind, saying, "I don't know, I just lost control. I was angry and frustrated, so I lashed out." Rin let out a sigh. "Kimaru already told me. I'm sorry this happened, you know, kiddo. Next time just walk away. Remember the lesson I gave you about dodging exercise?" "Yes," said Naruto, "the best defense against being struck is to be absent." Exactly the same could be applied in this situation. The best way to avoid a fight is to walk away. After giving his mother's advice some thought, Naruto realized how wise it was. "Mom, I don't want this to happen again. I want to learn control. I hate it when I get mad." Rin gave her son's head a kiss. "You're a good boy. Naruto, you do realize you're much too young to master your emotions, right? It takes a lifetime to achieve that level of enlightenment." "Then so be it. I don't care how long it takes. I know it'll be worth it. I don't want to lose myself in rage again. What if next time I snap and hurt you? I'll never forgive myself." Rin grinned. She was proud to be the mother of her son. She said, "That's very mature of you." Naruto remained silent. He relaxed and buried his face in Rin's arms. This night has lasted a long time. He had trouble keeping his eyes open. His voice was a little muffled from the hug as he said, "I need to apologize to her." "Do it tomorrow. Now it's time for bed." Once more, Naruto voluntarily descended into his mind and materialized before the caged monster. The cage's location was nearly as dark as it had been previously. The eyes of the beast inside were closed. In fact, Naruto was more shocked to see the beast sleeping than to see the cone of shame still affixed to its neck. Naruto hesitated for a second before raising a hand and wishing for the blue chakra collar to come loose. In a moment, the creature was awake. "You," it snarled, but this time it made no move to attack. After giving it a quick wave, Naruto took a seat on the wet floor. "Hello, did you miss me?" The beast's voice was even as it asked, "What do you want?" Naruto gave a shrug. Just saying hi and maybe to apologize. I didn't know the collar thing would stay on for so long. The beast's eyes were unreadable as it studied the human child. I've had worse, was all that was written. Naruto said, oh, the awkward silence lingered between them for a long time. Why are you here? It inquired at last. Unless they wanted its chakra, its previous jailers never came to see him. Do you need something from me? My chakra, perhaps? Not really, I already have too much chakra, why would I need more? Naruto looked at the being in the cage with a bit compassion and elaborated, I'm here because I thought you would like the company. I've been going through an undercover mission. Mom said it's good practice, so my siblings and I went to this civilian school. It's so boring, and then there is this bully at school who would hit me and take my food all the time. The beast growled angrily at the blonde child, asking, is that what you need me for? To torture me with all the boring details of your mundane life? Naruto gave the beast a scowl. Of course not, why would I want to torture you? It lost patience and yelled, then what's your point? Just get on with it. My point is, recently something happened and I came to understand what it feels like to be you. I can empathize how frustrated you must feel to have all that power only to be locked in a cage. I feel bad for you, and I want to help you as much as I can. Naruto stated clearly. His words lacked any hint of dishonesty. The boy's admission caused the greatest-tailed beast to stammer. Do not pity me, mortal, it roared, rising to its full scale. Naruto carefully explained, feigning indifference to the vast amount of murderous intent aimed at him. I do not pity you, like I said, I'm starting to understand you. This explanation caused the beast to visibly calm down. It eased back into its resting position as its red fur smoothed out around its neck. It said simply, good. Behind it, its tails fluttered slowly. Naruto sighed with relief. An enormous beast that might use him as a toothpick was the last thing he wanted to agitate. By the way, I really want to ask you this. Why are you here, in a cage, in my mind? I mean, what are you? I hope you're not my imaginary friend. I'll need to get my head checked if that's the case. Are you a summon? I've heard they can grow to the size of a small mountain. Mom told me there is even a floating turtle the size of an island. The beast sneered at the idea of being likened to a summoned animal, saying, I am the nine-tailed demon fox. Kyuubi, as you humans call me. I am also known as a tailed beast. Unlike normal summons, I am a construct of condensed chakra and consciousness, not of earthly flesh. Death has no permanent hold against me, Kyuubi stated with obvious arrogance. Naruto's blue eyes grew wide with wonder. Wow, you are a tailed beast? I've never met one before. Hold on, you didn't answer my other question. Why are you in my mind? Kyuubi gave the boy a frown. Because those stupid spinning eyes, that's why I don't want to talk about it. Naruto gave in and said, okay, if you don't want to, we won't talk about it. Let's talk about something else. Then an introduction, for example. Tell me about your hobbies, favorite food, likes, and dislikes. I'll start. I like my family. My hobby is to do shinobi trainings. My favorite food is ramen, and I dislike mean people. What about you? After giving it some thought, the demon fox gave an honest response, growing fond of this odd human child. I like the full moon. My hobby, before I got stuck in a mortal's gut, was to run at night and chase the moon. I don't need to eat, but I like the taste of natural chakra. My dislike, I hate arrogant mortals who covet power that does not belong to them. Naruto couldn't help but smile broadly at the possibility of making another friend. A little taken aback by the candid response, Naruto had a sudden realization and began to blink quickly before letting out a loud cry. He focused on the fox and said, whoa, hey Kyuubi, I just had a great idea. Watch. Similar to the cone of shame from the previous time, a big ball of blue chakra formed inside the cage. Kyuubi sat up, startled. What's this? It became wary. The chakra orb was tentatively prodded by several of its tails. The object did not break free from the force, but it did bounce around in the cage. The question caused Naruto's smile to widen even more. It's a ball like the full moon. You can play with it if you're bored. Pawing at its new toy, Kyuubi said, this is different. With barely concealed interest, the beast's slitted eyes followed the ball. The demon fox failed miserably if it was attempting to be casual about this. When Naruto noticed that the fox's entire focus was on the chakra ball, he said joyfully, I'm glad you like it. Consider this my apology for being mean to you last time. Let me know if you need anything else, okay? I'll see you around. He waved to his new friend before allowing his mind to return to the present. 9 years after Kyuubi's defeat, the Hokage's office. Abruptly, Jiraiya landed on the ledge of the wide window frame in his teacher's office, where he usually lands. Yo, he said with a lopsided smile to the Hokage. Hiruzen placed his pipe carefully, taking care to ensure that nothing too potent was added to the material he smoked. He was aware that Jiraiya had not experienced such joy in years. Nice to see you again so soon. Jiraiya, you're in an awful good mood. Care to share the good news? The Toad Sage said simply, Naruto is still alive. His joyful expression was contagious. The third rose slowly from his chair and walked toward his pupil. His heartbeat quickened in his chest as he asked solemnly, "You are absolutely sure?" Jiraiya reiterated, 100%. I triple-checked this with 3 different sources. My godson is alive. Jiraiya's and Hiruzen's smiles were identical. "I want the whole story. Come in and sit down," he demanded. After climbing through the window, Jiraiya took a seat on the couch. The white-haired sage closed the room for privacy, dismissed the on-duty Anbu, and began to tell his story. "You know how I've been building contacts all over Lightning Country. Recently I finally broke through deep enough to Kumo and I met this interesting guy. His name is Killer B. He is the container of Hachibi. The guy is also the teacher of Yugito Ni, the container of Nibi." By this time, Hiruzen was chewing his pipe pensively. It wasn't easy to figure out who the demon container was. Being friendly with them as a foreign shinobi was evidence of Jiraiya's mastery of espionage. Jiraiya went on. The Yugito girl was well trained enough to use Nibi's chakra to some extent. Killer B, on the other hand, had such mastery over Hachibi. He can freely communicate with the beast and use all of its 8 tails in battle without losing his mind. This information caused the third to inhale smoke. A few months ago, Yugito and her team was sent to Waterfall Country for a mission. They ran across an area with signs of battle where Nibi sensed Kyuubi's chakra. It was faint since the chakra signature had faded over time, but according to Nibi, it was definitely Kyuubi. "I went to Waterfall Country myself and summoned a sensor toad. It confirmed the claim immediately. I even went to the hidden village of Taki and requested a special mission from their Nanabi container just to be absolutely sure." The Fu girl said the same thing. "It's Kyuubi's chakra." Jiraiya repeated herself for the 3rd time. "Naruto is alive." Hiruzen's smile turned into a gleeful grin and he echoed, "Naruto is alive." After he recovered from the realization that Minato's son was still alive, the old man became more and more worried. "There is still hope. What's the boy doing in Waterfall Country? He can tap into Kyuubi's chakra. He is much too young to do it consciously. Was he in danger?" "Hold on, you said signs of battle. What did you find?" Jiraiya calmly said, "Settle down, teacher, I'll get to that. I combed the area and found several cremated remains, 1 dead horse and 4 dead men. Whoever killed them was in a real hurry. Even though they looted the corpses and cremated them afterward, they did not take the time to undo all the damages in the vicinity. There are signs of extensive use of earth jutsu and water jutsu. I also found weapon marks all over the place. If my hunch is right, those dead men were from Iwa." The third said, "No headband, I presume?" Jiraiya gave a headshake. "No headband, no clothes. Actually, the bodies were stripped clean. I did find several broken shuriken embedded in a tree. The quality of the steel had Iwa all over it." Hiruzen gave a solemn nod. "My guess would be, some Iwa nin ran into Naruto and they attacked him due to his resemblance to the Yellow Flash. Why else would a team of shinobi attack a 9-year-old child?" The Toad Sage concurred. "My thoughts exactly. Whoever took the kid in was smart enough to hide the bodies. They must know to avoid Earth Country like the plague. In the future I doubt they would even risk staying in Waterfall Country after this. Too bad the trail is several months old already. Knowing I'm this close to bringing the boy back to Konaha," he murmured a remorseful S. The third laughed. He placed his hand on the student's shoulder and said, "Cheer up, Jiraiya. Think of it this way, at least now we know where to concentrate our effort. By process of elimination, we know he won't be in Earth or Waterfall anymore. Rain is also out since it's completely locked down. Therefore, Naruto must be somewhere in Grass or other minor countries west of Fire Country. If we watch the western border carefully, then we can know for sure as soon as he crosses into our territory. Hell, I'll be surprised if you have not pulled out your spies from Lightning and poured them westward already." Jiraiya burst out laughing at the final remark. "You know me too well. I sent them out just before I came to inform you." The grin on his face parted as he continued. "Even so, since this intel is a couple months old, if we are really unlucky, then he could be in Fire Country as we speak. By the time we tighten up the western borders, he could slip by northward to Rice Country or southward to River Country. He could be anywhere, really, if he moves fast enough." Hiruzen cut in. "Then so be it. We can only do so much. Konaha simply cannot spare the necessary manpower to cover all the grounds. At least we know the boy is alive and well. I, for one, is thankful." Jiraiya let out a longing sigh and hurriedly added, "I combined all my resources and bet on him remaining in Grass. Let's hope I have better luck than Tsunade. You and me both, teacher." This made the Hokage laugh. The only entry and exit point for non-samurai into and out of Iron Country was Crossguard, the southernmost border town. The town was situated on the intersection of the trade routes that led to River Country to the east, Wind Country to the west, and Iron Country to the north. Iron Country saw this place as the mouth that fed its people, while the merchants saw it as just a place to stop and rest their trading bands. Every day, fresh produce, fish, grains, and medicine were imported from river country. Raw materials and low-grade minerals were transported in large quantities from wind country. In return, premium steels and precious metals were exported to the rest of the elemental continent. Iron Country was home to both expert blacksmiths and powerful samurai. Iron Country was situated west of River Country, but because of its high elevation, it experienced snowfall for the majority of the year rather than a temperate climate for its inhabitants. The Sanro mountain range was both a boon and a bane. The severe weather and poor soil permitted only one harvest annually, but the mountain itself offered all the world's riches in the form of superior ores. Iron Country residents were tough and uncompromising, just like their namesake. Similar to how blacksmiths would force iron into a coal forge and then repeatedly hammer out the impurity to turn it into steel, they believe in discipline and trial by fire. To be fair, it was only natural for them to think this way because the majority of its citizens were employed in some capacity in the metallurgy sector. Iron Country was the only elemental country with a samurai force rather than a shinobi hidden village. Because of this strange culture, first-time visitors from other countries were frequently surprised by the fashion sense of Iron Country residents. Every person in Iron Country carries a weapon. To be spotted in public without one was like going barefoot. Iron Country is off-limits to anyone on the elemental continent. As a general rule, every common person in Iron Country, samurai or not, was proficient with a blade. It was as fundamental as being literate. After years of wandering, the nomads unanimously decided to finally settle down in Crossguard. Thanks to all of the aforementioned factors, in essence, they had had enough of ninjas. They were, as usual, going about their daily lives in Waterfall Country. 2 months ago, a group of 4 Iwa ninjas suddenly emerged from the trees and began attacking Naruto. Given the intensity of the assault, one might assume the 9-year-old child killed their parents or committed another equally heinous act. It was strange either that or they hated blondes in an irrational way. They continued to shout about evil spawn and yellow hair. The whole thing just didn't make sense. Of course, the nomads struck back. They had never been happier to continue their shinobi training because they knew that if they didn't, they would all be killed. There was no doubt that the grizzly bull-like leader of the Iwa Nin was an elite Jonin. Rin and Kimaru had to work together just to stay up with him. Each of Haku and Naruto faced an Iwa Chunin since Tayuya hadn't trained enough for combat yet and Karen's poison attack wasn't fast enough to catch a faster opponent. They purposefully left the weakest one for their sisters, which she vowed to fix as soon as the fight was over. Both sides were evenly matched, and the skirmish continued for a while. But when Rin was seriously hurt by the Iwa Jonin's wide-area earth jutsu, the fight literally exploded in their faces. It ended quickly after Naruto, filled with rage, used his Tenen's power. Rin's injury, fortunately, was not as severe as it appeared. Regretfully, the crossfire killed their draft horse, Giant. The nomads alternately pulled the wagon away from the battlefield at maximum speed while loading their wounded members into it. Naruto quickly created extra shadow clones to pull the wagon so his siblings could take a break after he recovered from using Kyuubi's chakra. Rin was once again astounded by Naruto's skill with this advanced jutsu, which she had taught him as a birthday gift. They traveled at night and slept during the day, making their way directly to Crossguard without any delays. They initially gave Naruto a pass for ruthlessly killing his opponents, but after a day they gave him a reality check. Tayuya slapped him across the top of his head and said, "Don't go all emo on us." In a direct tone, Naruto's newest older sister spoke to him. "Be glad we are not dead. Don't apologize for doing what you have to do to keep us alive. You don't want to be consumed in bloodlust from using the beast's power. Then train, get stronger." This applied to all of us. "Actually, we'll all be so strong. No one would need your protection. Got it, little brother?" The nomads eventually arrived at their destination a month later. They opened a free clinic for a year in exchange for citizenship from Daigoro, the captain of the samurai border guards stationed in Crossguard. His offer was gladly accepted by the nomads. Nobody would care about their fighting prowess in Iron Country as long as they kept their shinobi skills hidden. It would be easy to pass off exercises like physical conditioning, kenjutsu practice, basic chakra control exercises, and intense sparring as training for aspiring samurai recruits. They would have relocated to Iron Country years ago if they had realized how simple it was to become citizens. For some reason, just because they were good healers, they were always given special treatment. Given how kind everyone in Wave was to them, they ought to have known. Nevertheless, it was a very flattering experience. They opened the Rusty Horseshoe General Store, named for their deceased horse Giant, with the proceeds from the sale of their wagon to a passing merchant a few weeks after they had relocated to Crossguard. As long as someone wanted to buy it, it sold anything from toys to medications to kitchen sinks. Due to her responsibilities as the resident healer for Crossguard, Rin was generally indisposed. Haku and Kimaru, the eldest sons, would alternately take their younger siblings out of town to collect merchandise. The townspeople were courteous, business was booming, and even the samurai soldiers in the garrison were friendly to their families. The stability was a welcome change from their previous nomadic way of life. The occasional appearance of ninjas was the only issue. Shinobi escorts are often hired by foreign trading fleets that have more valuable stocks. They saw Suna ninjas a lot because of the proximity. Fortunately, none of them ever find them amusing. They were thankful for Captain Daigoro's kindness in giving them citizenship. And this was not the last time. It was a great relief to know that the samurai would protect them. Rin knew the children were sick of constantly glancing over their shadows, but they would never admit it. After 3 arduous years of traveling, they were in dire need of a place to call home. Tayuya played with her newest toy, a short flute. While closing her eyes, it was taken from the deceased Iwa Nins who had previously attacked them. She claimed it as her own since none of her siblings were interested in learning to play an instrument. She turned out to have a lot of talent after all. Her skillful fingers weren't limited to picking pockets. "Hey sis, you are getting really good at this." Tayuya stopped, opened her eyes, and turned to face her brother. She said to the slightly unclean blonde boy with a raised eyebrow, "Aren't you supposed to be helping out at Kuro-san's place today? It's my turn to watch the shop." Naruto placed the wooden crate he was carrying on the ground and gave Tayuya a smug smile to flaunt his sister. He took something out of his waist pack with excitement. He said, "Take a look at this." After removing the kunai from Naruto's grasp, the redhead gave the weapon a close inspection. It appeared to be a black kunai of standard size. The blade was straight, the edges were sharp, and the weight was evenly distributed. She snapped her wrist, caught the weapon in a reverse grip, and twisted it around in her left index finger in her hand. It felt cozy. She flicked the weapon, launching it with blinding speed. With a dull thunk, the projectile sank easily into the wooden wall. About an inch deep. Tayuya walked around the counter to remove the weapon from the wall and asked, "It's a good quality kunai. What's so special about it?" Naruto had an almost blinding smile on his face. "I made it." To examine the kunai more closely, Tayuya froze and brought it up to eye level. "You made this?" she inquired, her voice displaying her astonishment. Naruto opened the wooden crate and showed his sister what was inside. "Yup, from scratch. Old man Kuro showed me how. He said he will even teach me how to build my own forge and everything. I made more. They're all in here. I made lots of senbon and shuriken too. But those are not as interesting. Making kunai is a lot more difficult. It's really hard to balance the weight. According to old man Kuro, the longer cutting edge a blade has, the more difficult it is to make it." Tayuya chuckled as she used her thumb to test a shuriken's sharpness. "Mom would totally flip. We have been looking for a reliable weaponsmith forever. The one in river was charging us through the nose. The one in wind has serviceable senbon, but their shuriken always breaks after one use. Tell me about it." What they should have done is to fold the hard steel over the cutting edge and use a softer core so the teeth don't break off so easily. They favored the coarser minerals native to wind instead of using softer materials. It's a lot cheaper to make, but it chips easily. Honestly, if all you want is to chuck them out in mass quantity like they are disposable, then it's probably the best way to make them. This only applied to shuriken, though the same thing won't work for kunai, especially if you use it for blocking. Naruto replied with a borderline religious glint. Bright eyes. Setting down the shuriken she was wielding, Tayuya retreated gradually. Naruto had not finished yet. For one thing, the ductility is all wrong. True, it's easier to temper the steel at a lower temperature, but then you sacrifice toughness of the blade for hardness. If you don't pay attention to the temperature, the blade becomes really brittle. Most people won't spend the time to fold metal for a measly kunai, but I think it's just laziness talking. Remember the tools we picked up from those Iwa Nin? Whoever made them did the exact opposite. Their shuriken and kunai are all made with the same care as any katana blade. You can tell by the wave pattern on the cutting edge. They are so well made, no one can afford to sling them around like pebbles. I think the best way to compensate is to use those projectiles with solid multiplying jutsu like a variation of Shadow Clone to give it a good boost. However, the same trick won't work with traps, and such cheap kunai is just as good as top-of-the-line kunai for distracting enemies. But then again, it's really tedious to keep track where you store your high-quality kunai and where you store your cheap kunai, so my solution to this problem is to... Tayuya lifted her flute and began to cast a sound-based genjutsu. Her face displaying pain. Naruto was snoring softly while lying on his back on the shop floor. 10 seconds later, Fluffy, Naruto's pet rabbit dog fox cat, scrambled to its owner's chest and pawed at the face of the sleeping boy. The jutsu's range extended throughout the entire store, but oddly, the sleep-inducing illusion did not disturb the animal in the least. If Tayuya wanted some quiet, she decided to develop a more complex jutsu for later use as soon as possible. She couldn't use the same trick to catch Naruto so easily again, since ramen is food and anyone with a trace of Uzumaki blood loved it. It was okay to listen to Naruto babble on about it. That isn't the case with blacksmithing, though. Furthermore, A rabid dog fox cat could not be enchanted by this jutsu alone, whatever it was. After shaking her head, Tayuya went back to playing her flute. In a few minutes, Naruto would awaken and learn to control his excessive metal-pounding tirade in front of her. To be honest, boys and their playthings. 11 years after the defeat of Kyuubi, the southern border between River Country and Iron Country. Musashi, the chief diplomat of Iron Daimyo's court, barely avoided a barrage of kunai originating from his left before using his blade to stop a second opponent's thrown Fuma shuriken to keep his charge from losing a limb. His faithful bodyguard Zaman used a well-placed katana strike to block another Fuma shuriken from his blind spot. Numerous corpses were scattered across the battlefield. The samurai side was losing, and both the ninja and samurai sides sustained significant losses. The only two remaining were Zaman, his escort's captain, and Musashi, the diplomat. They were ambushed 5-1 by their adversaries, the AIM shinobis. Following the initial skirmish, over a dozen AIM nins surrounded Musashi and Zaman. It's pretty obvious that their goal was to wear down the diplomat by sheer numbers. Zaman would have been slain long ago if he had been any less proficient. Musashi-sama, their aim is to capture you. We are almost at the border. Please hurry, I shall buy you time. Zaman said urgently. His armor was covered in scorch marks from Kaden Jutsu, and he had lost his helmet at some point during the fight. His sweat-drenched face was pale from blood loss, and a tiny pool of blood was beginning to form beneath his boots. The bodyguard irritated their ambushers, so they focused their efforts on killing him first. Zaman was barely strong enough to hold his swords, much less block the barrage of blows from several opponents. The darkness surrounding his vision was beginning to deepen. Depending on how much blood remained in his body, he would either be dead or fighting blind in a minute or two. Musashi frowned. His expression appeared feral due to the blood splattered on his face and scarf as he drove his katana hilt deep into one AIM nin's chest. He growled, I would rather die fighting. The 68-year-old continued to train with his blade. Despite having retired from Samurai Corps 3 decades prior due to injury, he was still sharp enough to take down a few shinobi despite his rustiness. Zaman repeated, hurry, there is no time. A weighted chain whipped out from behind the bodyguard and wrapped around his neck before he could hear a response. Zaman roared softly, then swung both swords at the chain, shattering the offending weapon before it could break his neck. Unfortunately, he was sufficiently delayed by this action for his opponent to use the attached scythe to hit him in the back. Zaman yanked hard on the chain with his remaining strength and used one final swing to decapitate his killer. Musashi was so distraught that he threw everything at it. He totally disregarded the smoke bomb that the AIM nins had thrown him. In the haze of anger and bloodlust, it was already too late when he realized something was amiss. Musashi stumbled to his feet and said, poison, AIM cowards. This is how Hanzo the Salamander trains his shinobi. The effects of the drug caused his vision to become blurry. Safe from the cloud of poison that hung over the battlefield, his opponents grinned behind their rebreathers. A masked AIM shinobi chuckled while making fun of the vanquished samurai. Hanzo? That old geezer? After our leader is done with you, you can personally complain to Hanzo in the afterlife. Someone is here, cried one AIM shinobi abruptly. Startled, a piece of metal stuck out from the side of his neck and permanently silenced him before he could identify the enemy's location. Musashi would later remember, even in his poisoned state, how his saviors brutally and efficiently killed the AIM nin platoon. Crouching on the AIM nin's back was this boy with wild blonde hair and shocking blue eyes. His victim's spine had been severed by the blade's business end, and he was holding a kodachi in both hands. He kicked the dying AIM nin's body and sent it hurtling toward another AIM nin nearby before the blood splatter could get on the boy's dark gray clothes. The boy twisted in midair and threw an absurd number of shurikens at the remaining AIM shinobi, using the dead body, almost dead, anyway, as a distraction. Mid-flight, Musashi swore the number of shurikens multiplied by 100-fold, possibly due to the poison in his system. Many of the AIM shinobi in the platoon were literally frozen in place as they attempted to block and dodge the projectiles. Suddenly, blocks of ice appeared and covered their limbs, trapping them so that the raining shurikens could impale them. At least 4 of the AIM nins perished instantly, as far as Musashi could tell. In order to avoid becoming a human pincushion, one AIM nin made a last-minute substitution, but a young girl with bright red hair and glasses saw where the AIM nins would reappear and slammed a kunai right through his heart. The approaching shurikens were thrown off course when another AIM nin released a massive ball of Kaden flame. A white-haired young man with a Doden jutsu emerged from the ground and flicked his fingers in the direction of the escaping AIM nin as he attempted to escape the reinforcement with amazing speed. Something white blasted out of the young man's hand. A moment later, the head of the escaping AIM nin exploded in a shower of blood. The remaining AIM ninjas, who were quick enough to avoid the projectiles, soon began to experience strange confusion. A faint melody that could have been mistaken for the sounds of rustling leaves was the only indication that they were being attacked. One of them was standing stiffly, his arms drawn back as though he were enclosed by an unseen cord as he fell to his back and jerked wildly, seemingly electrocuted. Another AIM nin let out a cry of pain a second later. The two crippled AIM nins leapt from the ground, hanging upside down from a nearby tree. Ankles first, another red-haired girl jumped from the tree and began tying them up with ninja wires that were almost invisible. Whatever jutsu incapacitated his comrades, the last AIM nin left swiftly destroyed it and tried to escape. Unfortunately for him, he was caught off guard by the blonde boy who led the ambush and was slain by the blunt side of his blade. Musashi was inconsolable because of the poison. He was almost certain that the entire exchange was a hallucination. A young woman of no more than 30 years old appeared out of nowhere and knelt beside him as he sank feebly to the ground from exhaustion, her hands pressed lightly against his heaving chest. Glowing green, his breathing suddenly improved for some reason. "Sir, reinforcement is on the way. Captain Daigoro of Crossguard Garrison shall be here shortly. Meanwhile, my children will hold the live AIM nins captive to be interrogated later. You are safe now." The woman replied. He was on the verge of unconsciousness, so it was hard to see her face, but her voice was firm but soothing. Musashi croaked, "Zaman, my man." The poison had nearly paralyzed his vocal cord and set his throat on fire. The elderly diplomat quickly fainted from his wounds, so his question was never answered. Katetsu and Izumo would always tell anyone who asked that watching over Konaha's main entrance was the most dull C-rank task ever. In private, though, they acknowledged that, with luck, guard duty might occasionally be the best C-rank mission. Guard duty was actually not that bad in comparison to border patrol missions, which, oddly, Hokage had been giving away like free candy in recent years on a slow day. It might be mind-numbingly dull, but at least they get to take a hot shower when they get home rather than camping in the middle of nowhere. Unfortunately, today got off to a slow start. They nearly wished for a bandit raid by the end of their shift. Izumo stretched languidly and yawned. "1 more hour, so what do you want for dinner?" After rubbing his eyes, Katetsu said, "I'm thinking about the all-you-can-eat barbecue place." Izumo questioned doubtfully, "The one opened by Akamichi clan where all clan members can eat for free?" "Yup, that one," Katetsu replied. "The place is more like an Akamichi cafeteria than a real restaurant. The food is awesome. I've heard it's a little pricey for people outside their clan, but today is payday, so we might as well treat ourselves. Remember? We have a patrol mission in 2 days. I want to have my share of good food before I go." "Alright. You got me at all you can eat, just don't remind me about the patrol, please," Izumo sighed. "I totally agree, man. Can you believe how many patrols we've been assigned to this year? 10, and it's only July. I swear I've been camping out longer than I've been stuck here at the gate. The kicker is, I haven't seen anything exciting this entire year. Like, nothing at all, not even a bandit camp. How I wish something interesting would happen for once." Soon, Katetsu would want to slap himself for allowing fate to tempt him. Squinting to get a better view of an approaching party from the guard post, Izumo scowled. He pointed to the small dots at the far end of the main street, the only route that led to Konaha's main gate, and said, "Hey Katetsu, are you seeing what I'm seeing over there?" After a moment of staring at the direction Izumo was pointing, Katetsu's mouth fell open. "Izumo, I might need my eyes checked. I'm seeing a team of 4 samurai escorts in full armor and 6 decorated Iron Country veterans wearing merit scarf around their necks. Hey, is it me? Or do they look sort of small?" Izumo's mouth fell open too. "What, they are not just short, they're kids. Look, those 3 on the left, they're totally kids." When Katetsu got a clear view of one of the faces, he let out a strangled gasp and nearly choked on his own spit. "Izumo, we need to call Anbu right now. Look at the person in the middle." Izumo let out a loud curse and then flitted off. They had to warn the Hokage himself, in addition to the on-duty Anbu. A long-thought dead comrade recently returned home. The closer Rin and company got to Konaha's gate, the harder it was to conceal her distress. No matter how hard she tried, the former Konoha Kunoichi could not help but twitch uneasily. More than 10 years had passed since she had last entered Konaha, the place she had once called home, but had no recollection of where she missed by her friends and family. How would they respond to her present condition if she did? In what way should she justify her absence? Did they write her off as dead, or did they view her disappearance as a sign of betrayal? Would they be suspicious of her, or would they welcome her home? It was a nerve-wracking experience. Her youngest son grabbed her sweaty hand and squeezed it tightly. "Everything is going to be all right. Mom, we are here with you. Besides, we have Musashi-sama's letter and his samurai escorts to make sure everything goes well. If this place turned out to be as unpleasant as I remembered, we can always go back to Crossguard. Captain Daigoro and Musashi-sama would love to have us back, not to mention we still have a few trump cards up our sleeves if all else fail," Naruto replied with assurance. Rin forced a smile at her son to get Rin's attention. Karen tapped on her shoulder and woke up. Rin-san, we have 3 pairs of high Chunin to Jonin level chakra signatures surrounding us. They feel like dogs but not quite so far, they are keeping at a good distance away. I think they are scouts. There are 7 low to high Jonins at the gate. Of those 7, 3 are trying to conceal their presence. One of them feels like an intangible shadow, one of them feels like a hive of buzzing insects, and the last one feels like an entire forest. Don't ask me, I don't know how that's possible, but he just does. On top of that, I think the Hokage is coming here to greet us as well. He is a little further away, but a chakra signature of that potency can only be an S-rank veteran shinobi. Following Karen's update, Zaman, the samurai escort's captain, spoke to his troops. We are surrounded by high-rank ninjas. Let's go through this by the book, stick with the plan, and we should be fine. Our mission from Musashi-sama is to escort the nomads to Konaha and ensure their safety until we are dismissed. Keep that in mind. The nomads were responsible for Zaman's survival. He would currently be worm food if it weren't for them. Rin and her kids saved him when he was literally on the verge of death. He seized the opportunity to pay back Musashi-sama when he asked him to escort the nomads as a favor. The group arrived at the gate with composure and came to a halt before their greeters right in front of the massive gate. 2 shinobi in Chunin flak jackets were standing alertly, obstructing their path. 2 masked shinobi with swords strapped to their backs stood beside the 2 gate guards. Rin was able to determine that 2 of the 3 hidden ninjas were underground and that the third was somewhere just above the gate by sending out ripples of chakra. Rin thought that Karen was correct. The chakra signature of the one above the gate was as intangible as the shadow. Even after she stretched her senses as far as she could, she was unable to determine the precise location of that individual. With his nose bandaged, the gate guard said evenly, "Greetings, travelers from Iron Country. Please state the purpose of your party." Captain Zaman produced a scroll and unfolded it, revealing to the gate guards the official insignia of Iron Country and the personal seal of its chief diplomat, Musashi. We are here on behalf of Musashi-sama to submit a mission request. The Honorable Nomad clan is here to oversee this mission. We, the Iron Samurai under Musashi-sama's command, are tasked to be the Honorable Nomad clan's escorts for the duration of their stay. Shikaku Nara cloaked himself in shadow and looked wearily at the strange Iron Country group. It was extremely unusual for the 4 samurai escorts to come to a secret village and ask for a mission in the first place, even though they appeared to be any other Iron Samurai. This so-called Nomad clan was present, which ensured that the event would be problematic. To begin with, all 6 members of the Nomad clan were wearing Iron Country's merit scarf, the one item of clothing that denoted a person's elevated status due to their military accomplishments. The last time he looked, Iron Country did not distribute their most coveted merit scarf like free coupons. Instead, it was given out in an official ceremony by the Iron Daimyo himself to individuals who had rendered exceptional services. But there they were, merely offspring of an unnamed clan, each sporting a merit scarf as though they had earned it. Shikaku was certain that they did, but that only led to the next obvious question. How did they earn it? Samurai earned their merit scarf in the same way that shinobi earned their flak jacket, through battle and bloodshed. The 6 members of the Nomad clan might have been more skilled fighters than their armed samurai escorts, if he was not mistaken. In his mind, Shikaku praised the Nomad's vision. The purpose of their escorts was to protect their political well-being, not their physical safety. They wanted this to be handled as an international incident for whatever reason. When something finally clicked in the shadow user's mind, he nearly swore aloud. He could just make out the purple rectangular facial tattoos peeking out from under the scarf as the brown-haired Nomad woman turned her head slightly. Shikaku maintained accurate records of each Jonin he commanded in his capacity as Konaha's Jonin commander. This woman was unquestionably Rin, a pupil of the 4th Hokage. Shikaku could come up with at least 20 possible explanations for her survival, the majority of which were negative. He promised to summon Inoichi as soon as possible to conduct a thorough mindwalk on the woman who had been thought to be dead. Shikaku's thoughts of the dead Hokage were immediately replaced by the blonde boy beside Rin. There was no mistake. Even though half of his face was hidden by the gray merit scarf at this age, the boy with the spiky golden hair and bright blue eyes was exactly like the 4th. It was incomprehensible how anyone could fail to recognize the obvious fact that the Kyuubi container was Minato's son, whiskers or not. Even though Rin may have been at fault for giving the impression that she had passed away for so long, she did at least one thing right. She restored the lost legacy of the 4th. For this reason alone, Shikaku was sure the 3rd would be forgiving of whatever sin Rin might have committed. However, Shikaku reflected, owning a fox as a pet is not a good way to make friends with the people of Konaha. When he noticed that the brown fox-like creature was right behind Naruto, he shook his head. Hold on, is that a fox? From another perspective, it appears to be a rabbit. What on earth is that blaze? Speaking of the 3rd, 2 from his hiding spot, Shikaku leapt down and landed silently beside the Hokage. The elderly man had a solemn air about him as he sped toward the gate. On either side of him were two masked Anbu. A close follower was another fourth Hokage student, Kakashi Hatake. It was obvious that Kakashi had been told of his deceased teammate's amazing resurrection based on the sparkle in the copy ninja's single exposed eye. Shikaku whispered, just loud enough for the elderly man to hear, "The blonde kid, Hokage-sama." The third stopped in the middle of his stride to glance at the shadow user. Hiruzen said plainly, "Send a message to Jiraiya, tell Inoichi to get ready," and proceeded to the Iron Country envoy. Shikaku quickly left after bowing. Loneliness, pain, disgusted frowns, and cold, uncaring eyes. Naruto was able to recall those aspects of Konaha, his former home. That, along with a gentle smile and the best ramen in the world from a kind old man wearing a funny hat. When Naruto saw the Hokage at the gate, he nearly forgot, "Old man." The elderly man appeared even older than he recalled, though his recollection of his early years was somewhat hazy. Before turning his stern eyes to Captain Zaman, the elderly man gave the blonde boy a fleeting smile. "How rare to see the Iron Samurai here in Konaha. Welcome, my friends. Let us discuss your mission request in a more appropriate place." Zaman bowed respectfully to the Hokage. He turned to Rin and handed her the mission scroll, saying, "It's an honor to meet the professor in person. Hokage-sama, I thank you for your hospitality. Lady Rin, you are in charge from this point on." With the scroll in hand, Rin said to the Hokage, "Lead the way, please." As far as Naruto could see, Rin was recognized by practically every Konoha ninja in attendance. It was encouraging, however, judging by the way he gazed hungrily at his adopted mother. Naruto thought the one-eyed Jonin with spiky white hair was almost creepy. For a while, they were quite concerned that Musashi's memory was not as good as he claimed. The old diplomat's memory of Rin as the fourth Hokage's pupil was a stroke of luck. Musashi claims that they had a brief encounter during the Third Shinobi War. It seems that Rin made a lasting impression because Musashi was able to remember the meeting in great detail. When Musashi, the elderly diplomat, looked closely at Rin's kids and noticed a tiny replica of the fourth Hokage standing in front of him, he nearly had a heart attack. When Musashi expressed his suspicion that he was probably Akage's son, Naruto was extremely perplexed. Even though he was young, some memories were difficult to forget. Naruto recalled those icy stares and whispered profanities aimed at him. A child doesn't forget that. Konoha was not a place that evoked happy childhood memories. For Rin, the same could be said. She struggled to balance her instinctive desire to stay away from anything ninja-related, like the plague, with her intense desire to visit Konoha and learn more about her past. Musashi had to persuade the former kunoichi to reconsider her decision to spend the rest of her life away from Konoha. Musashi had maintained that there would be no permanent escape because Rin and Naruto were already closely linked to Konoha. They would eventually have to confront their history. Facing it on their own terms would be far more preferable. Rin concurred. The nomads were now in Konoha for that reason. Naruto began to remember his early years as an outsider in Konoha as the group made their way through the secret village to the mission office. His sister Tayuya, who had experienced a similar upbringing, was the first to notice his depressed state. "Hey little brother, why the long face?" Naruto answered casually, "Just remembering stuff you probably experienced some of it yourself. Did you know I used to bathe twice a day, just to make sure I don't smell? Most people in this village turned up their noses like I stink when they passed me by in the streets, and of course hot water is too good for the demon brat. According to the caretakers in the orphanage, I had to bathe in the river." He heard someone growl behind him. Naruto's brother Haku was frowning at no one in particular. When he turned his head, it seems that his overly protective brother overheard him talking to Tayuya with an apologetic smile. Naruto chose to keep his melancholy thoughts to himself so as not to aggravate his family anymore. Kimaru complained with a tone of disapproval. "I see. For whatever reasons, I think we all know what the reason is. People in Konoha shunned you as an attempt to socially isolate you. Either they thought you were contagious, or they feared you. Most likely it was both. That's plain stupid. It's like setting a perfectly good rice field on fire and then salt the earth afterward because the farmer doesn't want weeds to grow. Then again, people tend to overreact after a traumatic experience. From what we know about Konoha's recent history, I would say the event was very traumatic indeed, not trying to excuse their behavior. You understand?" Karen offered her opinion. Karen's unbiased assessment was met with a shrug from Naruto. He didn't want to think about the past too much. He saw out of the corner of his eye that their conversation was more public than he had assumed based on the faint frown on Hokage's face. The elderly man most likely witnessed the entire conversation. Hiruzen did indeed record the full exchange between the blonde boy and his adopted siblings, as Naruto had surmised. The third was relieved that Naruto had spent the majority of his early years outside of Konoha's boundaries for the first time since the boy's disappearance 8 years prior. His goal had always been to raise Naruto in Konoha, despite his reservations given that Naruto's parents sacrificed their lives to protect Konoha. It stands to reason that Konoha would be the ideal location to protect Minato's son. He seemed to have overestimated people's ability to forgive and love. He had hoped that the people of Konoha would see Naruto for what he was, the hero and the ultimate sacrifice. However, they chose to punish the innocent boy and view him as a bitter reminder of all that they had lost to the demon fox. Or, as the Warhawk Danzo put it, a handy source of power. Naruto was blessed with a loving family and a good life outside of Konoha. By some strange twist of fate, Hiruzen promised to use the circumstance to his advantage in order to at last compensate the boy. The group was led from Iron Country to a spacious meeting room within the mission hall by the third and his envoy attendant Rin, the group leader. Based on Kakashi's tense body language, Hiruzen was almost positive she was Minato's dead student, began briefing on her mission request. Taking a deep breath, the woman began in an even tone. 10 years ago, I was found half dead floating down the Frost River. Due to the severe injuries, I lost my memories as well as my eyesight. Hokage-sama, my name is Rin, and these are my children. We are the nomads of Iron Country. She pointed to the 5 teenagers and went on, as a show of good faith, I am going to be as blunt about this as possible. So please bear with me and let me finish my side of the story first. I would appreciate it if you could keep all the questions till the end. As the woman introduced herself, an agitated spike of chakra pulsed out from Kakashi's direction. Hiruzen gave a contemplative nod, but remained silent. Rin placed a hand on Naruto's head and said, I wandered aimlessly in Frost Country for 2 years until I found a young boy one day. He told me he had no family, and he was terrified when I asked him about where he came from. I did the only thing I could. I adopted him as my son. Hiruzen nearly flinched. For an orphan boy, hearing that Konoha was a frightening town was not pleasant at all. Our small family grew as we moved from place to place. We worked as traveling traders for a while. Eventually we settled down in Iron Country. A couple months ago, we were informed by a reliable source that I used to be a Konoha ninja prior to my injuries. To be honest, I must say I found this information to be most unwelcoming. We considered Iron Country our home. My 3 boys were even planning to join the Iron Samurai Corps when they turned 15. Obviously, this plan is on hold now that I know my past identity can still come back and haunt me. Our clan cannot in good conscience completely devote ourselves to Iron Country when my loyalty is in doubt. When the third learned that Naruto wished to join the Iron Samurai Corps, he did flinch this time when his son Asuma fled and joined the 12 Guardian Ninja. It was like da copyright Yavu. Hokage-sama, even though I have no memories of my previous life as a Konoha ninja, I feel I should at least give this village a chance. After all, I did call this place home in the past. As the head of the family, I would like to request a formal mission to learn everything I could about Konoha so I could make an informed decision regarding my family's future, be it with Iron Country or with Konoha. Rin concluded by presenting the mission scroll to the Hokage. As the third deliberated, the room fell silent. He observed how little Rin actually disclosed. She only used general terms and skipped over the specifics. Her lack of trust in Hima, or rather, Konoha in general, was painfully apparent. Not even the names of her children were mentioned. The underlying message, though, was very clear. Konoha was the one being tried. She would quickly return to Iron Country and dismiss this village as a complete waste of time if she felt that Konoha was lacking. She was expressing to the world how much Iron Country valued her family's contribution by flaunting the merit scarf. Threatening her with disciplinary action for going missing would only make him feel worse, no doubt. Pointing out that Naruto was originally from Konoha would only serve to infuriate Iron Country. That would do for him. Hiruzen laughed after a long period of silence. It was very blunt, indeed an unusual request, I must say, but a most reasonable one. As you know, Konoha is a hidden village, and we ninjas in general like to keep secrets. Call it a job requirement. If you must for your request, I would like to set a limit so that all village secrets C ranks and above are off limit. Is that acceptable to you? After giving it some thought, Rin inquired, could there be any exceptions? Hiruzen's eyebrow went up. Please elaborate. Rin tapped Naruto's stomach once and remarked, I suspect this is highly classified, but my entire family is aware of my son's special condition. The urge to rub the bridge of his nose was resisted by the third. I see. Please keep in mind this information is classified as an S-rank secret in Konoha. I must insist you treat it as such. Rin gave a nod. Agreed. There is no reason to advertise this. We do not wish to draw more attention to our family, especially knowing who my son's biological father is. The Hokage's fist struck the poor furniture, causing the table in front of him to burst into a shower of wooden splinters. It was astounding to see the third's repressive murderous intent. Do not speak of it. Where did you get this information? Rin remained composed in spite of the oppressive aura that was trying to force air from her lungs after witnessing the far more malevolent intent to kill from a tailed beast. From Musashi-sama as the head diplomat of Iron Country, he took great pain memorizing every important person he ever met. According to him, "My son looks almost identical to his father." Musashi-sama also showed my family this person's picture from an old bingo book. Everyone agreed the resemblance was uncanny, adding his special condition to the equation. Everything all makes sense. Sighing deeply, Hiruzen touched his temples with his replied, "Then you must know why this must be kept a secret, SS rank secret, Miss Rin. In fact, everyone here. I don't care who you are. If you repeat this to anyone without my expressed permission, I will hunt you down like a dog and destroy you. This is not a threat. This is a promise. Do I make myself clear?" Everyone was completely in agreement. Nobody wanted to try the patience of a cage. As if nothing had happened, the professor returned to his chair and carried on with the negotiation, resuming his harmless grandfather persona. Hiruzen returned to work. "Good. Let's continue. I would like to assign the copy ninja Kakashi Hitaki to this mission. Would a time frame of 2 weeks be reasonable? We could discuss payment terms later." In order to obtain a mission report from his previous order, Hiruzen retired to his office. Following the meeting with the Nomads, he was met by Inoichi Yamanaka, the Yamanaka clan's most skilled mindwalker and current head. Even though their strategy was dishonest, Hiruzen was not taking any chances with Naruto. Using the village's main defense seal matrix to get a glimpse into one person's thoughts was no small task. Inoichi grimaced and remarked, "Well, I guess this proves my earlier hypothesis to be a bust." He rested his face as he told Hokage that, "I was so sure the boy was a bastard child from our clan for the longest time. My father almost enacted a forced mindwalk on all my clansmen right after the Kyuubi incident, just to see who should be responsible for the child. Now I understand why you ordered him to stand down." Everything she said was true. Hokage-sama, the likelihood of her falsifying her memory is next to none. She simply does not have the mental defense to even be aware of the intrusion. Granted, it was a bit strange to walk the mind of a blind person. I verified her memories with all other senses. She did suffer amnesia from the head trauma and remembered nothing except for her name and her practical skills. As to the primary concern we have, I have confirmed that there is absolutely no reason for her to do Konaha harm, unless we threaten her family. Her family, especially Naruto, is everything to her." The Hokage gave a sympathetic nod and motion for the man to go on. "In fact, I would say she is terrified to have any connection to any shinobi matters, except for training her children. Originally she did not want to come to Konaha. After she found out about her true identity, her children convinced her to come despite her bravado earlier in the meeting room. She was actually shaking in her boots. I could trace the irrational fear all the way back when she first lost her memory. It's a testament to her character that she would try so hard for her family's sake." Hiruzen hummed introspectively and asked Inoichi to explain. "Could you discern the root of her fear? Would it hinder her performance as a shinobi?" Inoichi gave a headshake. The fear itself would not hinder her ability the least. If anything, it makes her a better shinobi since she is quite paranoid when it comes to assessing potential dangers. The deep psychological connection between anything ninja related to a sense of loss is the cause of her fear. To be fair, she did lose everything while serving as a Konoha's loyal shinobi. A lot of veteran shinobis have the same problem. Her adopted children helped her regain her purpose in life. This is why she seems a little overprotective when it comes to her family. Regarding her family, did you get a good read on them?" To the Hokage's surprise, Inoichi suddenly appeared strangely ecstatic. "Not in depth, but I did glean off enough information from reading Rin's memory. Hokage-sama, for Konoha's greater good, we must get on their good grace and entice them to stay." Hokage's eyebrows went up. Inoichi went into further detail. "Putting Naruto aside for obvious reasons, all his siblings are sure to be valuable additions to our rank. The oldest son, the white-haired young man named Kimaru, is the last survivor of the famed Kagura clan who possesses the Dead Bone Pulse bloodline limit. According to Rin's memory, he is at a solid Jonin level already. In other words, he is stronger than his mother. The second oldest son, the black-haired feminine boy named Haku, is an ice user from the Yuki clan. The boy may not be a powerhouse like Kimaru. He is a highly talented medic nin. I would say he is at high Chunin to low Jonin level, easily. 2 rare bloodline users. I would wager a guess they were refugees from Water Country?" The third thought. "They are, but this is not the best part. The 2 girls are most likely of Uzumaki by blood. Karen, the one with shorter hair and glasses, is the best sensor I've ever met. Not only that, her chakra has a special healing property that is rare even amongst the Uzumaki clan. Tayuya, the one with long red hair, is very talented at genjutsu. Much like Kushina, her chakra can solidify into various shapes. She can produce chakra puppets. Hokage-sama, I'm talking about multiple self-sustaining, chakra-draining, solid chakra constructs that can be remote-controlled like puppets. Combining that with her skills in genjutsu, she is a fiend in battle. I would rank both girls as mid-chunin, if not higher. The revelation left Hiruzen stunned by blood. 3 Uzumaki. How likely is it that they will meet by chance and end up being adopted into the same family? The Uzumaki clan must be favored by someone up there. What about Naruto? Is he also skilled? With no hesitation, Inoichi confirmed, Naruto is easily as powerful as Haku the Ice User, if not more so. Granted, they never go at each other with the intent to kill during their regular spars, so I cannot say for sure. Rin considered him to be decently skilled with a sword, but I cannot tell what level he is at from her memory. Apparently she was not the person who trained him on Kenjutsu. More notably, his proficiency with Shadow Clone is simply insane. He can churn out hundreds, if not thousands of Shadow Clones, all without using Kyuubi's chakra. The third muttered, unsure whether he should be alarmed or proud of Naruto's accomplishment. This is a lot to take in. Without Kyuubi's help, you say? Does that mean he can consciously tap into the tailed beast's power? The head of the Yamanaka clan gave a solemn nod. Inoichi's expression was pained as he said, yes, Hokage-sama. He only ever used it once when he thought Rin was killed by an Iwajonin, but still, he can reliably call upon Kyuubi's chakra if he wants to. To what extent? It is still unclear. In Rin's memory, Naruto said, and I quote, the fox likes me enough if I ask nicely. He agrees to lend me as much chakra as my body can take. I think he really appreciated the bouncy ball I got him. I don't like using his power, though it makes me feel really angry, and it takes a long time to calm down. Hiruzen said foolishly, bone bouncy? Why, I don't even know where to begin. Inoichi most enthusiastically agreed, saying, you and me both. Hokage-sama, Naruto is one interesting boy. I would love to see what kind of ninja he would grow up to be. Talk of this enigmatic Iron Country family was positively rife in Konaha's rumor mill. Rumor had it that this family wanted to move to Konaha and that the Hokage himself was doing everything in his power to keep them there. One might wonder why the Hokage would be so drawn to this Iron Country family, and the answer was straightforward. They had at least 3 different bloodline limits, although the specifics of those bloodline limits were unknown. Rumors from the medical corps that carried out the analysis suggested that they were both strong and uncommon. In addition, they would immediately be eligible for official clan status, which was something that every family in Konaha aimed for, if they were able to produce at least 5 active shinobi ranked chunin and above. Why? Consider all the benefits that came with being a member of the clan. The Hokage gave free land to all official shinobi clans, regardless of prestige. In addition to being exempt from taxes, the major clans that consistently had at least 20 active shinobi ranked chunin and above, a Hyuga, Aburame, Akamichi, and Uchiha, were also given a sizable yearly stipend in appreciation of their devoted service to Fire Country. Unfortunately, these clans had since been lost due to the massacre. The best part was that the Fire Daimyo's decree would elevate the entire clan to noble status in addition to all that financial gain. There is no higher place in society than that. I saw them near the Hokage monument this morning. There were like 6 of them with 4 iron samurai escorts, a mother and 5 kids. So I've heard they were all wearing this large gray scarf that covered half of their faces. I hope the boys are cute. Even though none of them would be as cute as Sasuke-kun, we could really do with more good-looking guys in our class. Ino Yamanaka, an 11-year-old pupil at the Buddy Sakura Haruno. Inside the Yamanaka flower shop, the 2 rivals and friends were currently engaged in a lively conversation about their Sunday afternoon. Iron Samurai inside Konaha was a unique sight, and as a result, there was a lot of interest in them. Sakura inquired inquisitively, you mean the family from Iron Country, right? And received a quick nod in response. The pink-haired girl made a vague gesture while blushing brightly. I saw them in the archive just now. I don't know about them joining our class. To be honest, a couple of them are obviously older than us, especially the tall guy with white hair. If you see him close up, you'll understand what I mean. His shirt opens low at the front. The guy is more of a man than a boy. All that muscles. Shaw. What am I saying? Sasuke-kun will definitely look hotter than him in a few years, for sure. Ino deadpanned and said, you're a total perv. Seriously, get your giant forehead out of the gutter. Sakura sighed in embarrassment at her earlier mistake. Well, excuse me, you weren't there to see him up close. I almost walked into that wall of pecs and abs. I mean, that guy is too old to be in the academy. Besides, it's not like they're going to stay in Konaha for certain. No one said anything about them wanting to be ninjas, remember? They're from Iron Country. They're most likely trained to become samurais. Who knows? Maybe they're only here for sightseeing, or shopping, or visiting distant relatives. My point is, it's just a rumor, nothing is confirmed. Similar discussions were occurring elsewhere. Kiba Inazuka, the son of the matriarch of the Inazuka clan, was raving to his classmate Shino Aburame about the enigmatic family from Iron Country and more especially, about the girls earlier. While heading to a training ground, the two of them passed the family. Kiba's eyes were filled with stars after this brief encounter, if it could even be called an encounter. As he gazed at the direction his ideal girl had gone an hour earlier, Kiba flexed his biceps and puffed out his chest, saying, "I'm telling you, that girl with gorgeous black hair is unbelievably hot. She had her scarf down. So I saw her face. That babe is positively smoking. I should totally try to ask her out before she joins the Uchiha fan club. I mean, she seems like the type who would appreciate the roguishly handsome look, like me, right?" Shino did not address the dog user's actions, but he did raise an eyebrow at his friend's antics. Kiba turned to his loyal friend, not really expecting an answer, and said, "You agree with me, right? I know you agree with me, Akamaru?" Happily, the small white dog barked. Kiba sighed and replied, "I know what you mean. Hinata is nice, top of our class, easy on the eyes, and she is already growing boobies. It's not like I have a chance with her, though not with her cousin constantly hovering over her like a hawk. You know how the Hyuga is like. The Neji dude always gives me the evil eye. On the other hand, this new girl from Iron is a total babe, and she doesn't have a clan full of overprotective male relatives ready to juke my nuts off any way you look at it. The new girl is a better choice, well, safer choice. At least last time Hinata's cousin caught me staring at her tits. I woke up 3 hours later in a dumpster with a shaved head. He even got my eyebrows, that bastard." At last, Shino said, "Kiba." After adjusting his sunglasses, the bug user spoke slowly. "I understand that you appreciate the female anatomy. Therefore I must advise you to reconsider your budding affection toward this individual from Iron Country." "Why, you ask?" "My little friends informed me that your new romantic interest is in fact, male." Kiba's mouth fell open. Shino explained. This individual was very cautious as he warned away my allies with a subtle nudge of hostile intent. However, they did glean enough information about him, namely, his gender. Kiba's eyes began to well up with tears. Shino stepped forward to strike the final blow. "It is none of my business, and perhaps I've overstepped my bound when I say this. If you are truly attracted to this individual, feel free to pursue him. Your sexual preference shall not affect our friendship." Kiba let out a cry. One afternoon, the nomads were shown to a stone-paved garden by copy ninja Kakashi Hitaki, who was responsible for their request. "Your mission request requires me to give you a tour to all significant sites within Konaha. This is the Memorial Stone, a monument that listed all the names of Konaha shinobi who were killed in action. Our teacher Minato Namikaze's, as well as our former teammate Obito Uchiha's names are engraved on it. So is yours." Uncertain of how she should feel right now, Rin reached out to the stone and touched its smooth surface, saying, "How strange it is to stand in front of my own tombstone. It makes me feel like a ghost." The blind woman received a sidelong glance from the silver-haired John and he whispered, "You are a ghost to me." And then there was an awkward silence. Rin was always aware that returning to Konoha would eventually force her to face her past. It was not any easier for her to know it beforehand. "Maybe I am the Rin you know is dead. She died when she lost her identity. I am not the same person anymore. I'm sorry, Hitaki-san. Please understand." Rin groaned and apologized. The Jonin smiled with closed eyes and said, "Kakashi. You may call me Kakashi." Rin pulled her hand away from the stone and folded her arms, saying, "All right, Kakashi. It seems unfair. You know so much about my past life than I do. Would you mind sharing that information? It really bothers me how much I don't know." After giving it some thought, Kakashi began by laughing. "I know next to nothing about your family, seeing how they've all perished during the Second Shinobi War. That's why you grew up in the Konoha orphanage. We used to be in a team together under Minato-sensei. That much you knew already when we first became a team. Minato-sensei asked us what our likes, dislikes, and dreams were. I remember you said you like to help people, you dislike quitters, and your dream for the future is to have a big family. Obito was thrilled to hear that since he had the biggest crush on you, but you turned him down. He was such a crybaby about the rejection, and he coped by whining and picking fights with me. It was actually quite funny." "Picking fights with you? Why you? Oh, does that mean I did we?" Kakashi gave a headshake. "No." He reached up to touch his left eye, which was covered by his headband. "I promised him to take care of you. It was his last request. I am eternally ashamed to say I have failed him." Rin extended her arms and touched the icy stone once more. Kakashi grabbed her hand and led her to Obito's name without saying another word. Karen nudged Tayuya in the ribs from a discreet distance away from the two adults with a roll of her eyes. Tayuya handed a folded Ryo note to her sister. Naruto looked at Tayuya curiously. Simply, Tayuya whispered, "I lost a bet." Naruto asked her to elaborate with a hazy gesture. Tayuya sighed in frustration and whispered the explanation to her younger brother, "Right after the Cyclops got assigned to our request. Karen told me he had the hots for mom. I bet against her, and I lost. So unfair. Next time I won't bet against a censor. Naruto smiled. That's exactly what you said last time. Tayuya regarded the blonde with disdain. Rin's voice boomed. Kids, you can whisper louder, we heard you. Their mother sounded, as the siblings could tell, amused and a little irritated. The two redheads began to laugh at one another. Kimaru and Haku both sighed. Women. Busted, Naruto chuckled and replied, hey mister, you better bring your A game if you want to impress my mom. She has admirers lining up from here all the way to Iron Country right now. I would say the top contender is this super cute traveling healer. She visits us in Iron Country every month, and she makes mom blush a lot. The second most hopeful is the captain of the Crossguard garrison. He is a little older, but he has been really good to our family. You have some really tough opponents if you want to join the competition. Rin let out a moan. Both of her older boys palmed their faces together. Each of the two girls lightly slapped the back of their younger brother's blonde head. Karen warned, her face slightly flushed, Naruto, stop embarrassing your own mother. Her love life is no one but her own business. When Naruto realized what he had done, he gave Rin an apologetic grimace and gestured to zip up his loose lips. Oops, shutting up now. The four Iron Samurai were not far from the group, and it took a great deal of self-control to keep from roaring with laughter. Although the third had anticipated a smooth process, he had not anticipated that the entire council would reach a unanimous decision. Each council member decided to keep the nomads in Konaha after 2 weeks of discussion. It was simple to see why the elders agreed with his choice. They couldn't let the opportunity to acquire valuable bloodline users pass them by. After all, in the event that the Kyuubi escaped, the clan heads were pleased to have a few more Uzumaki blood containers inside Konaha as backups. Hiruzen was delighted that he had thought to designate this as a shinobi business, preventing the civilians from talking about it at times. He cursed the first for even establishing the council. He realized that in order to avoid becoming a dictator, he had to listen to a variety of viewpoints. As a Hokage, having grown older and wiser, he was unable to deny the efficacy of dictatorship, so be it, if that made him a bad person. The council called Rin to make their offer after a protracted debate to iron out the specifics. The former Konaha Kunoichi entered the council chamber with her oldest son at her heels and 2 Iron Samurai by her side. Hokage-sama, she bowed courteously in greeting. The third got right to the point, saying, Miss Rin, the allotted 2 weeks has passed. Have you come to a decision yet? Rin gave a slight tilt to her head. She handed the third a scroll and said, it would depend on you. Hokage-sama, here is a list of requirements from my family. If Konaha would grant these requests, then we could formally join Konaha. Hiruzen laughed and quickly inspected the scroll. It's more than reasonable, Miss Rin. I accept. Before we sign the paper, here is a list of Konaha's requirements. If you agree to these conditions, then we can conclude this business. Taking the scroll, Kimaru, Rin's eldest son, read it aloud to his mother. After some reflection, Rin replied, most of them coincide with our own requests. There is only one clause that stands out. Condition number 6. All members of our family who are willing to join the Konaha Shinobi Corp must enroll in Konaha Ninja Academy for no less than 1 year. Excuse my ignorance, but I thought all clans in Konaha are allowed to privately train their own clan members to fill Konaha's rank. Given that they meet Konaha's standard, I thought my children had demonstrated beyond genin level skills at your earlier request. Indeed, beyond genin level, more like, it was above Chunin's level. Having asked that the demonstration be held in private, Hiruzen was relieved because he could only imagine how envious some smaller clans would be. The nomads would immediately become an official clan if he assigned them a fair rank based solely on their skills. He added this clause because he did not need to deal with this political headache naturally, only he needed to be aware of that. The third gave a nod. This condition only applied to your 5 children. Future members of your family would not be bound by it. The purpose of this condition is twofold. 1. There is an age restriction for becoming a genin of Konaha. A few years ago we imposed the peacetime measure so no one younger than 12 may join the Konaha Shinobi Corp. However talented the person may be, this is to ensure the psychological well-being of our shinobi force. Your youngest son is only 11. If we send him to the academy by himself, he might feel left out. We might as well allow his older siblings to accompany him in school. Everyone knew they only had this restriction in place to keep from having another Itachi on their hands, even though no one said it aloud. 2. Since you have been away for a long time, we feel it would be best for your family to get used to living in Konaha. More importantly, it is to Konaha's best interest that your family integrate fully into our ranks. What better way to do that than to make friends with your peers? Keep in mind, I'm only asking your children to enroll in the Konaha Ninja Academy. not the Konaha Military Reserve. Standard procedure for foreigners to join Konaha Shinobi rank is to enroll them through the Fire Daimyo's military program. I am already showing favoritism by sending your family to our own premier Shinobi school where all genin candidates have a chance to apprentice under a jonin after they graduate. Normally, only Konaha natives have the privilege to do so. Officially, the Fire Daimyo commanded 5 major military forces, including Konaha. The majority of Konaha residents frequently failed to remember that the Fire Daimyo was Fire Country's top military leader, not the Hokage. With a population of 27 million, Fire Country always had at least 100,000 soldiers stationed throughout the nation. Approximately 10% of those 100,000 soldiers possessed the capacity to shape chakra to prepare those gifted soldiers to become fully trained shinobi. The Fire Daimyo founded the Konaha Military Reserve. Those ninjas were best described by the word disposable. Despite their sheer numbers, very few members of the reserve ever achieved the rank of Chunin. If the Fire Daimyo did not immediately seize them to serve as his private guards, they were immediately transferred to the Konaha Shinobi Court. To put it another way, the Fire Daimyo wanted to boast to other lords about their elite shinobi force, which is why Konaha was created. It was difficult for those who did not have shinobi in their family tree even after accounting for the Academy 3, clone, substitute, and transform. Most shinobi had fewer than 6 jutsus throughout their lives. Shinobi clans with secret techniques or established bloodlines were essentially born elites compared to the grunts from the reserve. People like Copy Ninja Kakashi, who was renowned for knowing 1,000 jutsus, were legendary. The underlying message was clear to Rin. This year was probably a probationary period during which they were expected to keep a close eye on their family. This was a very reasonable precaution on their part, considering all that Konaha had to offer her family. I accept now. Where do I sign? Said the tattooed woman, smiling confidently. The other 3 were assigned to return to Crossguard and pack up everything they owned, while Rin, Karen, and Naruto were required to remain in Konaha to renovate their recently purchased property. The move was much easier than they had anticipated because they had easy access to high-quality storage scrolls in a secret village. The Nomads eventually made their home in Konaha 3 weeks after Rin signed the formal allegiance document. The Nomads took so long to build their new home, which is why it took them so long to settle down. The property that Hokage had given them was not particularly noteworthy. The 1-story wooden building was actually less of a house and more of a dilapidated logging cabin. However, the building's accompanying plot of land was better than they had anticipated. This piece of land, which is situated in the northwest quadrant just outside the village wall, was one of several commercial logging areas that were leased to construction firms for the purpose of gathering building materials 10 years ago. This 4-acre woodland was partially cleared for its timber and roped off to allow for the growth of new saplings. Naruto wasted no time in abusing his mass shadow clone technique for his latest construction project after noticing the dilapidated state of the old cabin. He had, after all, spent a great deal of time constructing support beams with groups of shadow clones in some of the riskiest, yet most productive, orichalcum mines in Iron Country. Besides, it wasn't that hard to clear the land. He merely used futon to chop the uprooted trees into tidy piles of lumber and doden to soften the ground with the help of his army of shadow clones. Naruto was able to clear all the unwanted trees and boulders in just 3 days. To their astonishment, Tazuna and his whole family came to Konaha at the end of the first week to visit the Nomads. As it happened, Tazuna had gotten Rin's most recent letter and had made the decision to help them out by offering his services as a master carpenter. They made incredible progress building their clan house under his guidance. Even the young Inari pitched in by helping his mother prepare meals and fetch water. After returning from Crossguard a few days later, Kimaru, Haku, and Tayuya joined the endeavor. At last, the new home was finished and even furnished by the end of the 3rd week. Maybe calling it a clan compound instead of a house would be more accurate. In addition to having a small garden and an outdoor bath that was supplied by an underground hot spring, the main building itself could comfortably accommodate 20 people. A barn, a fenced grazing pasture, a farm plot, a large greenhouse, a workshop with a large storage room, a fishing pond that was connected to a mall stream, and a huge outdoor training ground were also constructed. They surrounded the area with a 3-foot-tall stone wall. This, along with a variety of plants that deter animals growing on the wall, was sufficient to keep local wildlife from wandering inside their new home and destroying their priceless herb garden or feasting on their helpless farm animals. The Nomad clan symbol, a straightforward rectangular cart with 2 rotating wheels, was prominently displayed on a decorative sign that Naruto had handcrafted inside his new workshop and placed on the wrought iron gates. A contented smile stretched across Naruto's sun-kissed face as he proudly admired his work, saying, "Nomad clan house, our home sweet home." Rin Uzumaki, formerly Rin Nohara, told her youngest son, "Nomad clan, you say it really should be Uzumaki now. It's one of the conditions on the contract." Naruto casually waved his hand. Technically, yeah. I did add the Uzumaki swirls inside the Kagaya wheels, though. So I think it's fine. I mean, we all registered our family name as Uzumaki with the Hokage's office. I could see why the old man insisted on this. After all, Nomad is an assumed name, and there is no point in pledging allegiance with it. Besides, I understand the original Uzumaki clan has a long history in Konaha as a dependable ally. It only strengthens our family's standing in this village by taking the Uzumaki name. It makes little difference to me if I were called a Nomad or an Uzumaki. We're a family, and that's all that matters. Rin laughed and ruffled the boy's gravity-defying hair with a hand, asking, when did you become so wise, kiddo? The golden strands instantly returned, still unkempt. By the way, why are you here by yourself? Where are the others? Oh right, that reminds me, said Naruto sheepishly, I'm a clone boss is with the others right now, exploring the market district. Kimaru, Karen, and Tayuya want to check out the major facilities in town. Haku and boss want to get all the supplies sorted out. I'm sent here to let you know where they are, but then I got a little sidetracked. Rin gave the clone a raised eyebrow. Supplies? I thought we've done stocking? With a cheeky smile, the clone clarified, school supplies. The matron from Uzumaki covered her face with her hand. The tone her youngest son just used was one she knew very well. You don't mean a... Yup, Naruto said intelligently. Oh dear. A thin line of drool slowly trickled down Naruto's chin as he looked dreamily at the wall of weapons. Blue steel katana, silver dagger, tempered steel with gold inlaid hand scythe, rust-free titanium survival knife, black gloss claws, and a broadsword. Seriously? What kind of ninja uses a broadsword that's 7 feet long, 1 foot wide, and 1 inch thick? That monstrosity has to weigh over a tonna, and of course it's made of orichalcum deer kami. How do they not get robbed? Right, because nobody can lift this thing. An elderly man with grizzle corrected, not quite, little boy. Despite the centipede-like appearance of the disfiguring scar that crawled on the right side of his stubble-covered face, Naruto appeared kind and amiable due to the amused smile on his lips. His short, dark brown hair was flecked with white. Naruto suspected that the tattered leather apron he wore over a ratty overall might have existed before Konaha was founded. Curious, Naruto blinked at the elderly man. Hello, he said. The old man's smile widened, and the centipede-like scar jumped. I see you like weapons, eh? This broadsword was said to be a spoil of war when my ancestor defeated a summoned bull. It's been passed down in my family ever since. In a respectful whisper, Naruto said, Incredible. What about the rest? Did you make them all? Most of them, yes. Why, are you looking for something? I take commission, but my work is not cheap. The blonde boy's face blushed slightly. Well, I'm hoping you can, if you don't mind, maybe you can take a look at this and let me know what you think, Mr. Kinju. The blacksmith raised an eyebrow and accepted the small sheathed blade Naruto gave him. Kinju pulled the kodachi from the gleaming wooden scabbard with a single, fluid pull and took a close look at the blade. Naruto's big blue eyes stared at Kinju's expressionless face, and he twitched uneasily. The blacksmith returned the kodachi to the boy after a few minutes had passed. So what do you think? Naruto asked. It's good. The edge is clean and well sharpened. The blade is expertly polished. It shows that you take good care of your sword. What about the sword itself? Is it well made? What about the shape and the balance of the blade? Would you be happy with the sword if you were the one who forged it? I really want to know. This is important to me, Naruto asked with greater urgency. Kinju gave the boy a strange glance. He paused, then proceeded to the door and closed it behind him. He led Naruto toward the rear of the shop and said, Follow me. The shop's back door led to a courtyard with an old-looking stone forge at the far end and a well in the center to shield the building from the weather. A sizable tarp tent was set up over it. 2 dummies, constructed from bamboo sticks, tightly packed straw mats, and a sheet metal shell, stood between the forge and the well. Taking up a defensive stance in the open area, the blacksmith swiftly swung the kodachi several times before doing the same with his offhand. He remarked, Good balance, as he raised the sword to his eye level to inspect the blade as the sunlight bounced off the smooth metal. The tempered steel's grain pattern glowed silently. Kinju gave a grateful nod. Fascinating. Both the folding method used to temper the metal and the curvature of the blade has iron country all over it. However, the surface has been treated to reduce glare. This is a weapon made for shinobi, not for samurai. At the remark, Naruto smiled. Then Kinju pointed to the dummies and said, May I? As the blacksmith retrieved a bucket of water from the well to pour over the dummies, Naruto held the sword and said, Go ahead, I was hoping you would. Kinju picked up the sword and kept it ready. The dummies were reduced to scrap on the ground after 4 fast swings following the test. The old man checked the blade once more and praised it, saying, "Very good. It barely made a sound with it cuts. And the cutting edge is pristine afterward, there is no mark left on the treated surface either boy. Take very good care of this sword, this is a weapon any swordsmith would be proud to stamp one's name on." With a loud whoop, the blond boy jumped around and pumped his fists in triumph. "Yes. Yes. Yees. Take that. Woohoo, totally awesome." Kinju shook his head in response to Naruto's antics, saying, "Right, now, if you don't mind, I'm really curious as to where you came by this sword. From what I know, weapon dealing in Iron Country is a highly regulated trade. The Iron Samurai would be all over you if you were to commission a shinobi weapon in their territory." Naruto felt a deep flush rise to his cheeks, embarrassed. He scratched the back of his head and said, "I made it myself." Kinju raised his thick eyebrows in astonishment. "All by yourself?" he questioningly said. The old man narrowed his eyes at Naruto as he nodded, shifting self-consciously. "I've worked in several forges in Iron Country for 2 years, and I've practiced lots on my own. This is not the only sword I've made, but this is the best one so far," he clarified. Crossing his arms and looking down at the young boy who claimed to be a skilled swordsmith, Kinju challenged, "Prove it. I have all day." Naruto's knuckles cracked. "Bring it on, jackpot." Karen's red eyes wandered lustfully over the precious gifts before her, and she cackled evilly. Her siblings retreated a step they learned from years of experience to avoid their bespectacled sister when she was in one of those moods. Tayuya gave Kimaru a serious glance, but her brother cowardly turned his head away, acting as though he had missed the cue. Finally, the older sister sighed silently and prodded Karen a few times to get her attention. "This section is for shinobi only, we are civilians, they won't let us take them out of the reading area." Karen sulked. "I know that, I just want to take a good look and make a list of all the books I want. Mom can get them for us, she is a jonin. You know we've been looking for sealing books forever. All we got is one water-damaged book on the properties of seal macro shape and a couple storage scrolls that we pried off some Iwa Nin's cold, dead corpse. Now this," the 12-year-old said as he looked at the book, "Sealing, in the Konaha archive. This is our first real opportunity to learn about the sealing art. I say we go to town with it." Tayuya eyed the many books on the shelves and rubbed her chin thoughtfully. The majority of the books appear to be old and yellowed on the illicit market. Any one of those old, dusty books would bring in a ridiculous sum of money. "You do have a point here, Karen Shinobi. Heck, even the samurai in Iron Country guard all information on sealing like a father protecting his daughter's virginity." Kimaru recoiled at the obscene description and moved away from his two sisters even more. Tayuya continued with a lopsided grin. "I saw the rules posted at the entrance earlier. The borrowing limit is 1 book for genin, 2 for chunin, and 4 for jonin. Academy students are allowed to read the books, but can only do so inside the archive. Let's skip the bureaucracy and get right down to business. We'll need Blondie's help with this. Any idea where he is now?" Kimaru gave a small smile. "He is supposed to be shopping for school supplies with Haku right now. Knowing them, they're probably loitering inside a weapon store. I'll go get them. You can go ahead and start without us." Karen added, "We'll need lots of blank scrolls." Kimaru waved and walked away, saying, "Will do." Soon after, the bone user located his brother Haku. The girl was standing in front of Kinju Blades, a store that sold weapons, and he was frowning at the door that was closed. Beside Haku stood a young kunoichi with a Konaha forehead protector on either side of her head. The girl's long brown hair was neatly arranged in 2 buns. This kunoichi appears to be nothing more than a new genin. "Why is the store closed? I was only gone for 20 minutes, Haku inquired. His concerns were audible to Kimaru. Equally perplexed, the kunoichi responds, "The store should be open. I don't know why the door is locked." "Oh, seriously? Again?" Kimaru came over to them. He questioned, "Problem? Where is Naruto?" Haku gave a headshake behind him. His long black hair swayed softly. "He is supposed to be waiting for me in here. You know how he is. Come on, I'll take you through the back. My dad is probably working at the forge again. You can hear the hammering from here. Is it really so unreasonable to ask him to put down his hammer for half a day? I know I shouldn't trust him to mind the store alone. By the way, I'm Tenten. My dad Kinju is the owner of the store. I don't think I've seen you guys before." The young lady led them around the structure, talking as they walked. The daughter of the owner of the weapons store was introduced to the brothers. The response they received was expected. "Ah, that's right. You guys are the new clan from Iron Country. I've heard about you. Are you all joining Konaha Shinobi Corp?" Tenten responded. Kimaru gave a nod. "Soon after we graduate from the academy next year." Tenten looked at them wryly. "No offense, but aren't you a little old for the academy?" Haku gave a brief explanation. "Lord Hokage's order." Tenten opened the wooden gate and said, "Got ya all right. Here we are, Dad." but she froze in place after taking a close look at the scene before her. Around the forge, 5 identical copies of the same blonde boy were working at once. One was stoking the hot coal inside the forge while working the bellows. Another was holding a bar of steel in one hand and a chisel in the other. 2 more were using a sledgehammer to split the bar by striking the chisel on the floor close by. A final copy was tinkering with a little pile of broken metal. Haku and Kimaru palmed their faces. Naruto set down the sledgehammer to say, "Hi guys, why are you here?" to his brothers. Tenten, a little taken aback by the strange scene before her, questioned, "They're looking for you, are they solid clones?" Astonished that the clone had not vanished, she jabbed a finger at the nearest one. Naruto said, Miss, you are poking at the original, I'm not a clone." Tenten jumped back in disbelief, then he clapped his hands together and turned to face Haku. Naruto apologized profusely, saying, "I'm so sorry Haku. I totally forgot about the time. Master Kinju and I were just conversing here when, one thing led to another." Haku gave his younger brother an indulgent smile and said, "It's not a huge deal now, what are you making?" With pride, Naruto clarified, "I'm creating a perfect duplicate of my Kodachi. I'm showing the sword to the owner here because he asked me to demonstrate that I made it." "Actually," Kinju clarified, his voice faltering with unexpected surprise, "I was expecting some other kind of affirmation. The number of folds used to temper the steel, the finishing clay pattern, or even the Tang's signature would suffice. I didn't request that he create a blade from the ground up." "I didn't, well then," Naruto stammered, coughing to hide his embarrassment as his mouth fell open and his cheeks turned a crazy shade of red. "In any case, I'm halfway through, why not? Hey, yay for me. I need a spare sword anyhow. I swear I'll reimburse you for the materials." "That's quite okay," the blacksmith said, waving him away. "Why don't you occasionally come over and assist me? You seem to have a skillful hand with the hammer." The boy's big blue eyes were met with a hopeful glance. "Really? Will you allow me?" Kinju laughed loudly and said, "Yes, without a doubt. How can I refuse free assistance?" Naruto grinned broadly at the response. "I'm glad everything worked out for you," Kimaru said, grabbing the boy's attention once more with a pat on the blonde's back. "I'm sorry to bother you, but the archive needs you. We need your clone army to do something." Naruto understood immediately. "Books?" With a swift nod, Kimaru affirmed, "We will help too, of course." The old cage was working when an Anbu in a cat mask interrupted, saying, "Lord Hokage, we have a slight problem." Having worked through lunch once more, Hiruzen recognized the Anbu as the one tasked with keeping watch over the Uzumakis. He looked at the wall clock and saw that it was just past noon. "What's the problem?" "Death by paperwork is what the Uzumakis would do to him," he asked, resigned to the fact that the new clan would cause him a lot more issues down the road. "They are copying books in the shinobi section of the archive." While drinking a cup of long-cooled tea, the Hokage hummed reflectively, "They are permitted to, in theory they are free to peruse or take notes as they like, provided they do not remove the books from the reading room or cause any damage to them. That's what many people do." "Sir, they are using dozens of shadow clones to copy every book under the ceiling section," the Anbu explained. "Tomorrow, they intend to proceed to the jutsu section." To the surprise of the Anbu, the old man began to laugh hysterically as Hiruzen choked on the tea and coughed as the liquid went down the wrong tube. "Mr. Hello, Kami. Why hadn't I considered it? Naturally, shadow clones. Let them be," Hiruzen said, dismissing the ANBU's worry as he got up to stretch his old, weary bones. "They can only access materials ranked C and lower because they are not allowed access to the archive's restricted area. They are shrewd enough to get around the borrowing cap, so I'll let them do whatever they want as long as they don't make a scene. Isn't that a discreet approach?" "Yes, sir, their shadow clones were disguised to resemble other people." "All right, they aren't promoting it. At least the council doesn't have to whine about it to me. You can return to your post now that you have it." The cat-masked Anbu nodded curtly and then body-flitted off. With a joyful sigh, Hiruzen made a cross-hand sign and said, "One shadow clone is approaching. Yes, exactly. Lunch, please tell me when I last had lunch with Konaha." A sour-looking copy of the Hokage, frowning at the pile of documents, was left in the office as he left with a satisfied smile. The local wildlife of Konaha had evolved to take advantage of this rich flora, which was immersed in a century's worth of human chakra emitted by the shinobi who lived in the hidden village and further enhanced by the first Hokage's subtle manipulation of wood release. Although the most dangerous part of the forest, where the giant and poisonous Konaha tigers roamed, was fenced off for the safety of Konaha citizens, people were well aware of the danger of wandering outside the protective walls that surrounded the village proper, but there were still some training grounds and privately owned properties outside the walls that were used by shinobi, people who didn't mind a little danger in exchange for some peace and quiet. Occasionally they might run into a confused bear or a few hungry man-eating leeches the size of a dog, but those were usually outrun by a fully trained genin. However, a newly minted genin had an unfortunate run-in with a strange animal that was not a local freak of nature on this lovely afternoon while exercising his springtime of youth. On his 5th lap around the village, Rock Lee, decked out in his brand new but already worn green spandex suit with 2 extra bars of training weights strapped to his shins, was attacked by a small bundle of brown furball. The genin dodged the creature out of reflex, watching in horror as the mutant squirrel, or maybe a large rabbit with a furry tail, missed his neck and instead tore a large strip of green fabric off of his priceless suit with its sharp teeth. Do squirrels typically have a mouthful of razors, exposing his bare chest in the gaping hole? No, not the outfit. Look what you have done to Gai-sensei's gift to me, you unyouthful creature. Lee cried, tears of mourning pouring shamelessly down his cheeks as he glared at his assailant with a fire of righteous rage burning in his eyes. How could you possibly do that? Lee gaped at the rabbit squirrel as it lifted its leg and urinated on the piece of cloth, all the while locking its beady eyes with the cloth's owner. The animal spit out the torn piece of green fabric on the ground and growled at the genin with contempt. The whole forest trembled at the war cry of the beautiful green beast of Konaha. Born into a clan steeped in tradition, Neji Hyuga was a stoic young man who had come to terms with the fact that fate had decided it was right to torture him in the most cruel way possible. His most recent trial in life came from his genin team, namely his teacher Maida Guy, who was brilliant but eccentric, and his teammate Mini Guy. Neji found himself wishing he were blind on multiple occasions to avoid their manly display of youthful passion, whatever that meant. Neji's first mistake with Rock Lee, in hindsight, was to soundly beat the naive child in a spar. To be fair, he only did this in response to the barrage of testosterone-fueled cries about youth. Apparently, a severe beating was insufficient to silence Lee. His second mistake was not acknowledging Lee's loud declaration that he was his eternal rival. It appeared that his teammate took Neji's lack of meaningful response as an invitation to further make fun of himself. Neji only chose to ignore this overly enthusiastic boy unless it was absolutely necessary to keep his sanity intact, because he could not for the life of him understand why this obvious sign of rejection would be mistakenly interpreted by his teammate as him purposefully trying to be hip and cool. The expression was just so archaic. He must have been much hated by fate. Neji's normally expressionless face was almost forced to smile in amusement when Lee arrived at Team Guy's regular training ground looking battered and flustered. Schadenfreude aside, the Hyuga was truly perplexed by his teammate's unkempt appearance. What could possibly have happened to Lee of all people? This time, what ridiculous trainings have you undergone? Neji frowned disapprovingly as he studied his teammate. Powerful, incredibly so. How can it be so strong? Lee gasped for air and then fell to his hands and knees on the ground. The Hyuga arched an eyebrow at this. With whom did you spar? A troll from the mountains. After catching his breath, Lee responded with a dejected expression. It's unbelievable that I lost to a rabbit squirrel. I lost to a cute little animal after all of my training. Take a look at my ruined suit. What is Gai-sensei's opinion on this? After dismissing the first sarcastic remark from his mind, good riddance, Neji questioned doubtfully, a rabbit squirrel. It was a squirrel that looked like a rabbit and had extremely sharp teeth, Lee said, shaking his head. I've never seen anything like that. After attacking me, the animal fled. It easily defeated me when I attempted to catch it. You are aware that all of your training weights are still on you, aren't you? Neji actually burst out laughing when he saw Lee's expression of complete shock. Too stunned to comment on the anomaly, Lee's jaw dropped open at the Hyuga's antics, but Neji's laughter was cut short when a furry animal suddenly landed on his head and began to nibble on his flawless hair. The Hyuga prodigy's killing intent erupted into physical waves of pure rage. Fluffy, here you are. I've been searching everywhere for you. Isn't it our goal to arrive at dinner on time? Ignorant of the murderous glares aimed at him, Naruto casually picked up his pet from Neji's head, still holding a long lock of glossy, black hair in its mouth. Fluffy rubbed its head against his owner's neck and meowed at the blonde. You, Neji roared, shaking with repressed anger, a short tuft of cowlick quivering comically on his head. With a quizzical tilt of his head, Naruto said, yes. The Hyuga's knuckles cracked. Hinata Hyuga was taught two things from birth. First, family comes first. And second, a Hyuga must always act with dignity. She rolled her eyes in private at the first golden rule. If the clan really believed it, the elders wouldn't have branded the branch house members with that hideous slave seal, and she failed the second one every time she sparred with her cousin Neji. It's embarrassing for a clan heiress to lose to a branch member, regardless of the fact that the guy was not only older, but also a true prodigy that only comes along once in a generation. Though not born a Hyuga, Lady Hitomi was a formidable Konoha Jonin in her own right, and it was no exaggeration to say that everyone in the clan, even the stubborn elders, loved her. Hinata still had nightmares about a near miss a few years ago, when her uncle Hizashi returned home with her mother in tow, both of them covered in blood from an A-rank mission gone wrong. Her self-worth would have undoubtedly been shot to hell if her mother hadn't been a constant source of moral support each time she lost pitifully to her older cousin. Her father's twin brother had calmly explained, "Lady Hitomi is your wife, she is family, brother." It was the only time Hinata had ever witnessed the stern man display such emotion, and she vowed to see tears in her father's eyes. A Hyuga must act dignified. Well, at least most of the time family comes first. Even though it seemed improbable, the clan as a whole decided to disregard the second golden rule today. The entire clan woke up this morning to discover that their hair had mysteriously changed from charcoal black to a shade of magenta that glowed in the dark. It wasn't just the hair on their heads, either, it was magenta everywhere. As one might expect, the clan was in a frenzy. Hinata concluded that whoever had done this must have had steely nerves, because they had to enter the clan compound, which was constantly patrolled by Hyuga branch members with their all-seeing white eyes active, and somehow apply this stubborn dye to every Hyuga's person. If the saboteur had a more sinister goal, the repercussions would be unimaginable. When Hinata asked why she thought she saw a wistful expression on her mother's face, Hitomi replied that the prank reminded her of a beloved, deceased teammate, Kushina Uzumaki, the red-hot habanero prankster extraordinaire and the infamous ramen addict who out-ate an Akamichi. Oddly, everyone was purple with indignation as expected, which looked absolutely atrocious with the magenta hair above all. Her mother described her as the best friend anyone could ask for. Uzumaki, is that not the case? To silence her, her mother swiftly placed a finger to her lips. Not a word, never. You can't talk about a lot of things, including this one child, do you understand me? Despite her lack of understanding, Hinata obeyed. My dear daughter, life is unfair. The last vestige of resistance in the girl's mind was successfully crushed by the flicker of pain that swam up to the kind woman's eyes. Hinata had to go to school regardless of the terrible fate that had befallen their proud clan's heir. Wearing her best Honti Hyuga Gaiza scent, which, in her case, wasn't convincing at all, the clan heiress silently endured all of the pointing and giggling from her classmates while keeping her head held high and her cheeks flushed red. Too aware of the slack-jawed looks that were directed at her because of her ridiculous hair color, Hinata briskly walked to the very back of the classroom and sat down at the last row, all the while hoping that the ground would split open and swallow her whole. Her year group's homeroom teacher, a chunin named Iruka Yumino, gave her a startled double take before putting on a professional mask and stepping up to the podium to greet the class. Welcome back, everyone. I hope everyone had a successful summer vacation. You should reconsider your career choice if you have been slack off because there was no school. This will be the final year of school for a lot of you. You will soon be an adult Konoha soldier and a full-fledged Konoha genin. In order to complete the missions that Lord Hokage has given you, you will be putting both your life and the lives of your teammates at risk. It is my responsibility as a teacher to instruct you while you are in class. It is your own duty to get ready outside of the classroom, though I sincerely hope that none of your names will ever be inscribed on the memorial stone. Looking around the classroom, Hinata could see the effect of the teacher's speech. The civilian stocks appeared either chagrined or thoughtful, while the clan children were largely uninterested, as they had been brought up to be shinobi from birth. On a more positive note, we have some new students with us starting today. Iruka added they belong to the Uzumaki clan, who recently moved to Konoha from Iron Country. Let's extend a cordial welcome to them. Hinata, who may have been forbidden by her mother to ask questions because she had not mentioned observing them, chewed the inside of her lower lip to stall all the questions that were brewing in her mind. Uzumaki. When the teaching assistant Mizuki led the 5 new students into the classroom, the entire room erupted in a cacophonous clatter of excitement. They were all dressed similarly, wearing black pants, a gray training shirt that was elbow length, with the red Uzumaki swirl stitched over their left chests, a plain red sash to keep the shirt together, and leather hiking boots instead of the ninja sandals that were provided. On closer examination, Hinata saw that none of them carried any standard-issued shinobi tools. They also lacked a shuriken holster in the side pouch that was supposed to hold wires and kunai. In addition, there was one other oddity. 3 of the 5 of them were clearly older than the average academy student, which the class did not overlook. Look, they're old. The irony that the person who made the remark was held back a year himself did not escape Hinata's notice as she nearly recoiled at the foot-in-mouth moment on her classmates' behavior. Do they truly belong to the same clan? They don't look alike. Oh no, they must be awful by now. They ought to be genin. Take a look at the blonde. His face is so stupid. The girl with the black hair is gorgeous. Looking quite annoyed by the derogatory remarks, Uruka raised his voice and said, "Be quiet, you lot. For those who are foolish enough to flaunt their ignorance in front of the classroom, please do yourself a favor and shut up. Lord Hokage has ordered them here. Lord Hokage's word is the law in this village. As you should already be aware, they are currently your classmates and will eventually become your allies." The instructor turned to the new pupils and said, "Please give an introduction, be kind. Share your name, age, and pastime with them." An older girl with long red hair, the first from the left, introduced herself as Tayuya Uzumaki 13. The slight twitch on her left pinky suggested that she was tempted to reach for something sharp to stab people with. Perhaps the girl was not as unarmed as she appeared to be. "My hobby is none of your business," she said, her face sour. It seemed that she did not appreciate some of the previous remarks about her family. Hinata chose to stay on this person's good side if she could. "My name is Kimaru Uzumaki," said the tall, white-haired young man next to the right in a level voice. "I'm 14 years old. My hobby is gardening." Hinata noticed with a start that this man carried himself similarly to her father. His aura was too calm, actually, and it was unsettling. Hinata could tell that this person's body language suggested that he was more amused than annoyed by his lackluster reception. Uzumaki Karen, 12 years old. Hinata would have missed the glint of malicious intent directed at the people who had said cruel words earlier if she had blinked. "I like to read," said the girl with short red hair, with a modest smile on her lips before meekly pushing up her glasses with a hand. Her pale face was faintly flushed, giving her a timid and vulnerable appearance. Perhaps she wasn't the only one who noticed the act, because out of the corner of Hinata's eye she saw her classmate Shikamaru Nara breathe out a quiet snort. She was relieved that her bloodline limit allowed her to see out of the back of her head, especially in this person's presence. "My name is Haku Uzumaki, and I am 14 years old," said the next person, a stunning young woman with long black hair that was loosely tied in a simple knot and was glossy. "I enjoy studying medicine," the young lady said, a tiny smile spreading across her flawless heart-shaped face. Hinata could almost hear the class's male half sighing collectively and the female half hissing in jealousy. After a brief pause, Haku casually revealed the truth to everyone. "I am a boy, not a girl," the feminine boy explained, his big, gorgeous, doe eyes betraying no deceit. "Next, please," he said to the final of the 5 new students, as the entire class erupted in shouts of disbelief, and Hinata had to use a great deal of self-control to avoid using her white eye to verify this absurd assertion. Uruka had to pound on the desk with a fist to calm everyone down. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki," the youngest of them, a boy with spiky blonde hair and a big smile on his face, said, 11. But as soon as his eyes fell on the Hyuga, the boy choked on his own spit and had to cover it up with a loud cough. Hinata thought glumly, feeling oddly saddened to be made fun of by this boy. "Stupid hair." As Naruto peeled the clinging animal off the blonde boy's head, he said, "And this is my pet, Fluffy. My hobby is training with my family." A blur of furball chose that moment to shoot through the open window and wrap itself around the blonde boy's face. "Is that a nin dog?" Kiba, a proud member of the Inuzuka clan and their classmate, exclaimed. "I've never seen this breed before." "Are you blind? It's not a dog, it's a raccoon, its tail will tell you." "Maybe a rabbit. Its ears are incredibly long. Clearly, it's a cat." It let out a meow. The odd animal's owner shrugged and said, "Fluffy is special. I have no idea what sort of animal he is. He is a very intelligent furball with many sharp teeth, based on my best guess." To start the class, Uruka broke up the debate and said, "Go sit with your classmates. Any vacant seat will do," he said. The classroom was filled with empty seats, and to Hinata's dismay, the blonde boy chose to sit directly beside her. "A pop quiz will be our first activity. Which 3 fundamental jutsus are necessary to graduate?" Uruka began. The lesson proceeded without incident, and although Hinata was usually a focused learner, she was not paying much attention to her teacher today. During the lesson, she would catch Naruto stealing glances at her. She pretended not to see him, embarrassed by her ridiculous hair and annoyed by the unwanted attention. "Hasn't this guy heard of tact?" she thought sharply. The boy calling for her as soon as the bell rang was something Hinata had not anticipated. "Hey, can we talk?" Naruto asked, a pleading look in his blue eyes. "Alone?" Hinata's arms were crossed slowly. Hinata repeated, "Medical dye that is sensitive to chakra?" "It's usually used in surgery to highlight non-chakra materials like shrapnels, necrotic tissues, and hair." Naruto confirmed in its diluted form. "The chemical is totally safe." "You are claiming that you managed to sneak into the Hyuga clan's home, avoid all of the guards who can see out of their heads, and poison each and every Hyuga in the middle of the night, and you were alone when you did that?" Hinata's voice rose as she asked. "Slow down. No. I didn't say that, Naruto cautioned, scanning the area frantically with some assistance. I sneaked into the Hyuga clan's home and added the dye to the water tower. No one was poisoned by me. It's totally harmless, as I said. Do you think this is innocuous? Hinata's white eye flashed dangerously as she gave the boy a withering look. Naruto swallowed and added humbly, it'll wash out in a day or two. To keep her temper in check, the Hyuga heiress closed her eyes. Why did you do it? She inquired. Naruto started his story by saying, I saw this conceited man named Neji harassing Fluffy a few days ago. He claimed that because of my pet's hair, a Hyuga's dignity had been desecrated then. With murder in their eyes, the jerk and his strange teammate chased us around the village. Hours passed while they continued. Do you not think that they went a little too far? My mother was not pleased that I skipped dinner. Let me tell you, a prank is justified. I reasoned there is no doubt that this man needs some humor in his life. After giving him an incredulous look, Hinata burst out laughing uncontrollably, nearly collapsing. It's quite amusing, she said, the expression on his face. She had to cover her mouth to stop the noises. Does that imply that I'm free now? Make a vow not to tell anyone? Hinata, who hadn't laughed so hard in a long time, said, sure, but if you ever make me the collateral damage again, then our deal is off. Hinata wiped away her tears. With a broad smile, Naruto said, deal. You know, you're pretty awesome for a stuck-up Hyuga. He said, we should definitely hang out sometimes, and cheerfully left, not realizing that the girl he had left behind was blushing wildly. Hinata discovered much later that she had neglected to inquire about the identity of his accomplice. Even though both of her teammates were giving her the death glare, Tenten was rolling on the ground and laughing uncontrollably in a Konaha training ground. The sight of Neji sporting magenta hair and Lee wearing a rainbow-colored spandex suit was too much for her to handle. Their teacher, Guy, made the casual remark, my dear students, I did not expect you to take the springtime of youth mantra literally. Tenten nearly passed away. The Uzumaki siblings sat at the dinner table following their first official academy day. Rin had worked as a medic nin in the pharmacy division of Konaha General Hospital during the day while her kids were in school. Her disability prevented her from doing much of her job, but her experience more than made up for it. It would take her a little while to adjust to working in a facility the size of the Konaha General, but she was sure it wouldn't be long before she was performing at her best. How did your first day of classes go? I hope it's more engaging than the civilian winter schools you've attended, Rin said to her kids. Yes, only 4 times today did I feel the urge to gut someone, but I resisted the urge to Yuya deadpanned as she jabbed a fork into the roast beef, saying, the breathing technique really helped me with my anger issue. Although Yuya may not share Naruto's passion for blacksmithing, she certainly enjoyed handling sharp, stabby objects, so he was relieved that they had the foresight to avoid bringing anything sharp with them today. Haku laughed. We reviewed math, geography, history, and cryptography during the morning. We studied jutsu, trap setting, and throwing in the afternoon. It was enlightening. As she pushed the vegetables around on her plate, Karen complained, more like pathetic. The class spent more time joking around than going over the practicals. Is this unbelievable? It seems that a third of the students still struggle to create a basic clone, not clones of elements. Mind you, I am referring to the simplest illusion clone. I accomplished that with just 2 weeks of chakra training when I was 7 years old, she grumbled, frowning in disgust as she ate a carrot chunk. Karen's comment made Kimaru smile, as the bone user was aware of how much Karen detested boredom. Have patience. Kids, remember that you are enrolled in the academy to form friendships with your peers, not to receive training. You will not be a productive teammate in the future if you do not have this experience. The goal of this year is to strengthen ties within the village, Rin stated. Naruto said, I am very confused. His families were accustomed to his speech pattern, so the sudden outburst did not alarm anyone. What are you confused about? The Uzumaki clan's matriarch inquired. Naruto said hazily, school, and this village, mostly about ninja in general. Explain, brother, Karen said, shaking her head. I still don't understand. Naruto scowled as he gathered his thoughts, saying, well, Ninja Academy in Konaha accepts students from 6 to 12 years old, with 12 being the minimum age needed to graduate, correct? That's right. There is a law that says that. A Kimaru, who was present at the meeting when the Hokage raised this point, concurred. Shinobi clans, I've heard, typically begin training their children at age 5, give or take a few years. Kimaru is the strongest member of the clan and has been training since he was able to walk, which is pretty extreme. Yuya began at age 9, and if you exclude Foxy, she is roughly as strong as I am. At her younger brother's assessment, Yuya snorted and said, dumb kid. Hey, Naruto objected, saying, I was curious and looked up mom's record in the archive. Let me finish. Her teammate made Jonin at 12, While she made Chunin at 11, this is the section that truly baffles me, please excuse my bluntness, but our academy classmates, who received roughly the same amount of training as we did, are surprisingly weak. None of them are at Chunin level, but a few might be able to make Genin at this time if there were no age restriction. Am I expecting too much from this group of academy students, or are they just abnormally weak? Naruto's family responded with a round of roaring laughter after a moment of stunned silence. His mother laughed and wiped away the tears from the corner of her eyes, saying, "Kiddo, you are hilarious." "I am unable to comprehend why is it so funny?" Naruto inquired, bewildered by his family's response. Haku decided to assist the blonde after feeling sorry for him. First of all, many active shinobi received promotions during the previous war. Sending 9-year-old child soldiers to the front lines is by no means common practice unless it is absolutely required. The village has since raised the bar for promotion and graduation. I'm not familiar with Mom's teammates, but based on the records, Mom graduated from the academy at the age of 9 and was sent to the war as soon as she mastered the 3 basic jutsu techniques. She was promoted to Chunin on the battlefield at the age of 11, and she saved the lives of 4 other shinobi by using her medical expertise. She was not a completely qualified Chunin, though it was a wartime period. In order to make villages appear stronger than they actually were, it was common practice to inflate the current ninja rank second while we eat dinner. Naruto, some of your clones are in the archive right now assisting Karen's clones in proofreading the copies, is that right? Yes, Naruto said. During this period, the archive is relatively silent. Are they the only clones you currently have on the market? The ice user inquired. No, a couple more exist in addition to the teams in the archive. I have a few more teams out doing other things, such as using Tayuya's clones to map the perimeter of Konaha, Kimaru's clones to practice taijutsu, and your clones to gather materials from the forest. Oh, I nearly forgot. I also had several dozen of them milking goats in the barn, creating a fresh batch of kanai in the workshop, and testing out the new storage seal. His siblings gave him a strange look for the last remark. Earlier, I came across 2 goats wandering through the forest and took them in before they were devoured by some wolves on the defensive, Naruto clarified, finders keepers. All right, do you now see the issue? Haku inquired. No, not at all. Why don't you tell me directly? Naruto. Do you really believe we have been putting in the same amount of time as a typical academy student to train to be a shinobi? Asked Haku patiently. I can easily create 4 shadow clones that could last all day because I have the family's smallest chakra reserve. How much more training can I do in the same amount of time as an academy student? And given how many shadow clones you've been using on a regular basis, how much more training have you been doing? After doing a quick mental calculation, Naruto responded with wide eyes of astonishment, anywhere between 50 to a few hundreds a day. Easily, of course. Not all of them are for training, however. It's still in the dozens if you only include the ones I use for training. Whoa, that's what I've been doing, but I don't know it. Come to terms with it. Sir, our family is not typical. You are exceptional. You are not typical in response to your initial query. Our new classmates are not abnormally frail actually. I think there are some outstanding ninjas in this class. We are the ones with the unusual strength. Naruto, it's easy math. Why didn't they teach everyone how to use shadow clones back then? The blonde boy confessed. I've never thought of that. Anyone with a reasonable amount of chakra reserve can create at least one that would last a few hours, and it's not a hard jutsu to learn. Tayuya had to try 3 times before she got it right. Shadow clone jutsu is typically reserved for Chunin and above, Rin said in response to his query. I only recently learned that this jutsu is prohibited in Konaha for 2 reasons. The mental strain it places on the user and the high chakra demand required to power the jutsu. The likelihood of someone dying from chakra shock is very high if they use this technique when their chakra is low. Brain damage alone may cause someone to go into a coma if they lack the mental capacity to handle the information overload from eliminating the shadow clones. There are a few exceptions, though, because you all have Uzumaki blood in your veins. Naruto, Karen, and Tayuya, your inherent high chakra reserve and healing factor help you get past this jutsu's limitations. Haku and Kimaru, you both possess the extraordinary mental toughness needed for the technique. In addition, you all possess good chakra control and the ability to assess your physical health due to years of medical training before you hurt yourself. You know exactly when to stop. Naruto pondered the explanations for a while before saying, I think I understand now. But there's still one more thing that irritates me. What precisely is expected of us now that I know we are not at the same level as a normal academy student and that we are all required to attend the academy regardless of our ability? In my opinion, it is not wise to perform at our best in school in this circumstance. I was fortunate to have a very weak opponent today, so when I beat that child, Nobody gave me a second look. He fell on his face and passed out after I tripped him. Holding back all the time would be difficult for me. I could cause serious harm to someone with just one mistake. With a contemplative tap on his chin, Kimaru said, "This problem has more layers. I don't believe we've thought of this, but the Hokage had asked the 5 of us to spend a year at the academy for a very good reason. My own estimation is that we are all at least as strong as Chunin. Our family would have been formally recognized as a shinobi clan rather than merely a civilian clan. If the village had given us the proper rank based only on our strength, many would gnaw their handkerchiefs in envy at the prestige alone. Our accomplishments are too thin, and our family is too new. The village would undoubtedly become resentful of our elevated status." "I understand you are implying that we shouldn't make too much of an impression." "Quite logical," Haku concurred. Naruto wrinkled his brow in disgust. "Oh no, no more espionage." The blonde wasn't the only one who was repulsed by their predicament. Yuya frowned at the now shredded roast beef on her plate and fingered her steak knife absently. "For a whole year? Before I go on a murderous rampage, someone please just kill me right now." Speaking up to share her knowledge, Karen said, "I actually have a solution for that. I think we can accomplish 2 goals at once, but first I need to bounce some ideas off of you guys. An ancient talisman from the Inari Temple in Grass Country, a medical text on anatomy, a scroll on an antiquated seal matrix, and the design for the greenhouse's irrigation system." I'm getting off topic in any case. The seal's 3 main parts are already fully formed. I just need to make a few small adjustments. We'll be done with it in a couple of days, top. Rin smiled covertly as she listened to her kids talk about how they were going to stay alive in the academy for the next year, believing they would figure it out on their own.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.